Deion Sanders says we wouldn't be talking about jerseys being retired during spring games if one of the players whose jersey is being retired's last name wasn't Sanders. And he's right. He is right about that, but not for the reasons that he thinks he is. It's Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson. I'm rocking it solo. We might have a Cole Bryson drop in here or there throughout the show today, but he is across the way getting some new guys trained up on our sister station, 98.9 WORD. So it's just me and you today, Tolos, and I mean that as the collective you, because I need all of you to text into the show at 844-FAN-PHONE. The Hub City Spartanburgers text line, 844-326-3663. Tolos can also jump into the conversation on the stream, which is on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Already got a dozen of you Tolos in the conversation or in the stream right now. Jump in and let's chop it up. We'll have a good time today on a Friday. So if you're not aware of what's going on out in Colorado, it's got a lot of people upset. Deion Sanders is retiring the number 2 and the number 12 jerseys of his son, Shedeur Sanders, and Travis Hunter, wide receiver, cornerback, galore, Heisman Trophy winner. And that's got a lot of people in their feels about what's going on out there. And it's not that like these guys aren't deserving, because Travis Hunter very much is deserving of having his jersey retired. Shedeur, questionable. Questionable if Shedeur Sanders should have his jersey retired. He's got a whole lot of records at Colorado. Not that that's that difficult to do when you've got, 100-year football history and only like 4 good years out of the 100 of them. But people are mad about it. Not just people out in the internet, not people like me who get paid to get mad at things like that and to talk about things like that, but it's got former Colorado Buffalo players upset about it. And what I think doesn't really matter that much. What they think absolutely does. And Deion Sanders is fielding all kinds of questions. Why? Why are you doing it now? Why are you doing it at the spring game? Why are you doing it when they haven't even been out of school for more than like 4 months? Why are you doing this, Deion Sanders? Well, he was quoted in the media as saying these words, quote, "We're talking about Shedeur. We ain't talking about nobody else. If his last name wasn't Sanders, we wouldn't have this discussion." And again, Deion Sanders, I 100% agree with you. You know the little emoji when you type in the number 100 on your phone, the little red 100 underline. Yeah, Deion, I agree with you. We wouldn't be talking about this if we were talking about anybody else. You know why? Because if it was anybody else, he wouldn't be having his jersey retired at Colorado. Shedeur is only getting his jersey retired right now, immediately following his playing career ending, because he's your son. If it was anybody else on the team, you wouldn't be retiring his jersey. And that's what we're starting to show off here. Wire to wire, Diesel and Cole Bryson, Tolos, kind of running a little side-to-side action here. You're going to see my head, if you're watching on the stream, ping-ponging, because I got stuff going on this screen, and I got the stream going on that screen over there. We're busy around here. Dan B says, yo, welcome to the stream, Dan. Madcraft says, guys, we should take Cole to a Bark in the Park baseball game. He said, genius. Well, yeah, I mean, I don't know how the driver doing, but the Spartan Burgers are starting off hot. They got a plus 500 record through their first 15 or so games, and they got a game coming up tonight as well. They're going to have fireworks out there at Fifth Third Park after the game. So you Tolos, lucky enough to be going out there this evening, catching a baseball game, which I believe first pitch is at 6:30. You're going to get fireworks afterwards, so you might as well stick around. There were some fireworks in the game as well, some big-time dingas, home runs in the game last night. We'll get into that a little bit later on in the Daily Wires. But again, back to this Colorado thing. You got former Colorado players, those who were on the national championship teams, giving their opinions on this. And what Deion thinks, okay, that kind of matters because he's the one orchestrating this. But what former players from this program think about it, I think matters more than anything else. Chad Brown, a Colorado Buffalo Hall of Fame linebacker, posted on social media, quote, "If the players from the national championship team have not received such an honor, by default, this action dismisses, diminishes, and for a new generation of Colorado fans, erases their greatness. I would never minimize the impact of number 2 or number 12. They are amazing players, but this timing is poor." And that's the problem that everybody has with it. It's poor timing. It's too soon. You got to let this sit for a while. You got to let it marinate for a while. I mean, for God's sakes, Shedeur and Travis, they combined for a record of 13 and 12. I mean, it's not like they were blowing the doors off of anybody, right? Once they finally faced legitimate Big 12 competition, they folded like a cheap lawn chair. You know, the ones you sit in, your butt just keeps going until it hits the ground. Your beer's splashed everywhere. That's what this Colorado team was over the last 2 years. And look, if you want to put them in some kind of a ring of honor, if you want to etch their name into a brick and put it somewhere special, fine. Go for that. I don't care. It's your program. It's your party. Do what you want to do. But when you got players that won national championships for your program still sitting there waiting to have their jerseys retired or to be honored in some specific way. Like, read the room, Deion. Read the room. If we weren't talking about a Sanders, we wouldn't be talking about this at all, says Deion. And he is absolutely right. Let's see here. Madcraft says we're going next week to watch the Spartanburgers play the Drive. Awesome. We're going to be there on Thursday. Any Tolos who are going to be at the Fifth Third Park next Thursday, we'll see you out there. We'll be doing the show there, getting you going for the first day of the NFL draft. Obviously, wall-to-wall coverage of that day. It's going to be weird talking about football in a baseball stadium all day, but you know what? We're going to deal with it. We're going to deal with it, and we're going to get through it together. Cordell Stewart doesn't have his jersey retired, and Shedeur Sanders couldn't hold Cordell Stewart's jock. That's why people have a problem with this. And look, I mean, maybe you want to break the Colorado football history into two parts, right? Pre-Deion, post-Deion. Or Anno Domini, AD, before Deion, Anno Domini, in the years of Deion. I mean, there's fans who are tuning in and discovering Colorado football from all over the country who have no connection to Colorado football. They haven't been around. They haven't lived in Boulder. They haven't lived in Denver. They haven't lived in Colorado Springs all these years and endured the terrible, terrible state of college football that has been coming out of Boulder, Colorado since the 80s. And it shows. You know, these are the people that went online, they bought a hat from Lids, had it shipped to the house. They got the sunglasses to look like Deion. They grew the beard out. Maybe peppered a little gray in there just for fun to make yourself look like Deion Sanders. And that's all they care about Colorado football. And I think what Chad Brown, again, former Colorado Buffalo Hall of Fame linebacker, had to say holds a lot of weight. And Deion needs to respond to that. Deion needs to be sensitive to that. Am I wrong here, Tolos? 844-326-3663. Want you to be a part of the show today. Want you texting in on the Hub City Spartanburgers text line. I want you responding and jumping into the conversation on the stream. I'm going to do my absolute best to get to as many of your messages as I can, but you guys are fast and furious all day, every day, and some of your messages just get buried real quick. So I'm going to do my best to pay attention to what's going on your side of the street over there. Let's see. This is JD, I believe. Sign your texts. Says, you are 100% right, Diesel. Yeah, I mean, it really, like I said, it's not about how I feel about this. It's about how Colorado players feel about this. Tyler Columbus, who was a standout offensive lineman for the Buffaloes, posted on social media, quote, the vitriol from former players regarding CU retiring number 2 is loud. I think most, including myself, believe he deserves the honor. Eventually. That's the key word, eventually. Bypassing the line, bypassing number 2, Deion figures, doesn't make sense. So, there are so many all-time greats that deserve the honor and have waited their turn. Why so fast? 0 waiting period? Feels like the first blunder of the Coach Prime era that has upset alumni. He's winning. You know, winning cures all. He goes out there and has a good season this year. They're not going to care about this anymore. They're going to say, oh, cool, look at that. Got the jersey up there in the rafters somewhere. It's retired. Like, if you want to have a ceremony and enshrine the jersey somewhere, fine. But don't retire the numbers so that no one ever can wear 2 and 12 again. Like, if you want to retire it years from now, when nobody has touched Shedeur Sanders' records 20 years from now, perfect time to do it. Perfect time to do it. But to do it months after leaving Colorado, sandwiching it in between the spring game and the draft, where you're going to have both of these guys likely go top 10, maybe even top 5, it just feels desperate, right? I mean, how much more attention do you need? Hey, the news cycle doesn't need you in it right now, Deion. Sit this one out for a little while. Deion did say that he has been a part of several jersey retirement ceremonies, and it's never been a sore subject before. Quote, "This is the first time I've ever seen it sore. I don't know if you know it, but I think every jersey I darn near played in is retired. So I'm pretty familiar with this. It's never been sore." Yeah, but Deion, how long after you finished playing did those jersey retirement ceremonies happen? And was your father involved in getting you retired immediately after you finished playing at those places? No. It's nepotism. It screams nepotism. It screams like they don't have any reverence for Colorado's football history prior to getting there. Right? It screams, we are the show. We are the only show. We are the first, last, and only ever show here in Colorado. So bask in our glory. I'm going to enshrine my son in any way that I can immediately. Would Colorado unretire these numbers if Deion up and left early? Wow, could you imagine? I mean, there would be a push for it, I would think. You know, these alumni, guys who wore number 2, guys who wore number 12 prior to Shedeur and Travis Hunter coming to town, they might say, yo, we got to get these jerseys out of here. We got to open this number back up. Put these guys in the Ring of Honor at Folsom Field. I got absolutely no problem with that whatsoever, but this is nepotism from Deion Sanders, and it makes Colorado look like a bunch of Johnny-come-latelys, and we know that that's not the truth. Both of these guys were really good. Travis Hunter should legitimately have his jersey retired one day at Colorado, but I don't know if Shedeur should. They say he's got like 1,000,001 records. Well, you can keep coming up with new ways to combine records. I mean, I saw a record for Travis Hunter that said he had the most number of snaps played in a season while also getting X number of interceptions. Like, that's a bogus record. It's a BS record. You could come up with any combination of stats you want and say, oh, now they're the record holder for this. Well, yeah, because nobody ever thought to make this a record before. Madcraft says that is silly goose material. Love it. Appreciate you, JD, for the heads up on the ticker. Thank you. Kane says it's nepotism and it's a way to bump up Shedeur's stock with the draft coming up. Something a little extra for his resume. Interesting theory there. As a matter of fact, Jake Crain from Crain and Company, who's going to be on the show in the next segment, I had to pre-record the interview with Jake because he does his show at the exact same time that we do our show. He has a really interesting theory about the NCAA and how out of control NIL has gotten since the NCAA took their hands off the wheel. A conspiracy theory. This is a juicy one, Tolos. You're going to want to stick around to hear this. That's coming up in the very next segment. What else do we have going on throughout the day? Well, Jake Paul is trying to fool us again. We'll talk about that at 3:45. The Masters now in the rearview mirror. What are the biggest question marks surrounding golf for the rest of the season? Efforting to be joined by JJ Hardy of Panthers Culture at 4:20. He is a fantastic guest, super plugged in with the Carolina Panthers. Life found on another planet, not that far away from Earth. We'll talk about that in the 4 o'clock hour as well. And somebody finally using their NIL for good. You're going to love this story, and it may make you tear up just a little bit. What's going on with Bryce Underwood, the $12 million Michigan man who hasn't even played a snap of football for the Wolverines yet, already making headlines for doing the right things, being a great guy. Can't wait for you to be with me for the rest of the show today. Jake Crain, Crain and Company, coming your way next, right here on 97.7 FM in Greenville, 97.1 FM in Spartanburg, and everywhere you are on the free Odyssey app. Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson coming up at 4 o'clock. Now that the Masters are over, what are the biggest questions surrounding golf for the next year? We'll get to that coming up at 4 o'clock. But joining me right now on the show, a longtime guest, used to be a regular. Now he's just irregular, former college football coach. So when he speaks, you better listen or he'll have your ass running stadium stairs. The host of Crain and Company, Jake Crain on the Real Daily Wire, joins us now. How are you, buddy?
Oh, man, I'm doing great. Obviously, always fun when I can join you guys. And, you know, now that March Madness is done, I know we got some other stuff going on. We still have 900 Major League Baseball season regular season games left, but I'm ready for kickoff.
Jake, between your brother, Blaine, and your co-host, David Cohn, who's the sucker that's going to buy the Jake Paul pay-per-view against a 38-year-old Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., and why is it Blaine?
Well, I think Blaine is the most likely just to hate watch it. He's been trying to fight Jake Paul for 3 years. I just look, I'm just not into, you know, boxing in itself. And I got a lot of respect for the tradition of boxing and obviously how popular it was. You know, UFC to me is so much better. But if I want to watch, you know, old people get beat up, which I don't, I just go to a nursing home and pull the fire alarm. I don't get it.
Yeah, it feels like, you know, every Jake Paul is just bum fights on pay-per-view. Jake,
it really is.
I've heard stories, even though I've never been to Scandinavian countries, that men over there are so weak and feckless that women actually have to be the romantically aggressive ones to ask men out on dates. Now, you and I are married men, so it wouldn't help us much, but I would have loved to have saved all the money that I spent on drinks and cologne and clothes to attract women. So I say all that to get into the topic of the Braves reporter who got a woman's phone number live on the air. Now, I think if he had been shot down on live television, if the blonde to his left had said, "No, thanks, I have a boyfriend," it would have made for insanely compelling TV, but it also would have had all these social justice warriors on Twitter actually applauding women's empowerment because she said no to the dirty, aggressive, mean man, right?
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, to your first point about the Scandinavian country, that there's a reason America's back-to-back World War champs. There's a reason we're the biggest superpower in the world, because at the end of the day, we're the ones that are going to go get it and go make all the plays. You know, it's laughable to me because I think if you put, you know, the biggest knock was, oh, well, if that was a female reporter asking for a guy's number, she would have gotten absolutely crucified online. You mean like you're crucifying this guy online right now? That wouldn't have happened. There would have been no guy out there that was pissed that a woman reporter asked for a dude's number. That's encouraging because, like you said, typically it goes the other way. So I thought the reaction was crazy. What I said on Crain and Company was, I wonder what they would have said if that guy was asking another guy for his number. I'm sure all those same social justice warriors would have probably applauded it and talked about how inclusive and great it was. So it's laughable at this point. If you really watch the clip, the announcers kind of egged him on to do it. So it was kind of a shtick. And you know what? I hope they get married. I hope they have 4 kids. I hope they have an incredible life, and it's a 30 for 31 day. We've just gotten so soft, and I know social media isn't real life. It's laughable at this point to me.
Yeah, I saw it as kind of like a Hallmark meet cute kind of moment. There's even a word for it, a meet cute. The guy wasn't aggressive. He wasn't sleazy.
No.
It seemed like a fun, innocent bit, and I didn't see any issue with it at all.
No, I didn't. And again, we've just gotten to a point now where everybody just wants to get offended about everything. And it's just so I think maybe we're starting to get out of it a little bit, but just the fatigue of, oh no, he's harassing her. Yeah. Watch that interaction. I don't think she was getting harassed at all. You know, I would love if people came up to me and asked me for my number. You know, I'm married now, so I'm not worried about that. I outkick my coverage better than any special teams coach ever could. But at the end of the day, it's just, man, grow up, Peter Pan. Count Chocula. This is how it works. How do you think you got here?
Well, and we need the follow-up. We need to know if he called her or if to him it was just a bit as well, right? I mean, he just because he got the number doesn't mean he's going to call her. But if he does call her and they go out on a date, we need details on this. This is a running through thread with the Atlanta Braves being as awful as they are. This might be the most compelling thing about the Braves season so far.
No, it'd be the biggest win they've had. I can promise you that. Look, at this point, it sounds like a great TLC show, or like one of those shows where it's kind of like reality TV. But no, like I said, I hope it was genuine. I hope they get married. I hope they have 19 kids, and I hope it works out great. It's just so ridiculous at this point. We got to get back to the basics, man.
It's Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson, joined right now on the phone by Jake Crain, host of Crain and Company. Make sure you look up their content and find them. They're absolutely fantastic at what they do. I saw yesterday, Jake, that you tweeted well wishes about Chad Baker-Mazara after he announced he's leaving Auburn for the transfer portal. I'm going to tell you, man, you're a bigger man than me, because I wouldn't have. I'm a petty X. I want to see all the dudes that leave my program go sit the bench and stink somewhere else. I just wonder, is fans fawning over players who are leaving their program, tweeting out the thanks for your efforts, and I'm calling you out. Is that enabling guys to say, well, the fans don't really care about me if I leave, so I could just go?
Go ahead. No, at the end of the day, I go it from a coaching perspective. Even as fans, because all these players on social media, you don't want to go after a guy on social media and team up and hate on him, because all these guys talk to each other, even if he's leaving for bad reasons, even if you don't like him, this, that, or the other. I never wanted to burn a bridge, especially in the transfer portal era, because how do you know that at the end of the day, one of his best friends isn't a guy that's going to be down to Auburn, Duke, and Illinois? How do you know if him and PJ Haggerty from Memphis are boys or not? So you can tell your friends offline, hey, don't like this guy, whatever, say what you want, it's a free country. But to me, especially as kind of brittle as people are now because of social media, including the players, I'm going to say, hey, man, it's a Fall Out Boy situation. Thanks for the memories.
Jake, let's stay right there with the transfer portal topic there for just a second. About 2 weeks ago, I don't know if you saw this video or not, Grambling State head coach Mickey Joseph proposed buyouts for players. He said, I can't stop and I don't want to stop players from bettering their situation, but he highlighted the reality that now his team is without an asset, a player that he was counting on, and that he doesn't have the resources at Grambling, the NIL collective, to just go out and buy a player to replace the one that he lost. We're already shrinking rosters. Are buyouts, in your mind, at all an effective solution? Say if South Alabama decided it cost $100,000 to house, feed, care for, and coach Gio Lopez, should North Carolina, who just signed him officially today, have to compensate South Alabama for taking their asset?
Well, I think once we have, and I tell you what, the interview we did with Jim Cavall, who is as ingrained in where NIL is and where it's going as anybody else the other day, kind of hinted at this. Once we actually have a structure and guidelines, I think there is a way to implement buyouts through legitimate contracts, right, that are performance-based and tenure-based, which we can't do right now because there's no law that allows it, because these guys aren't employees. And that's what, is going on right now in the House and in Congress and this, that, and the other. Because it's not really NIL, it's pay for play, but you do it through an NIL contract, which is really non-withstanding, and that's why these guys can move and go about. But I think one of the nice offshoots of getting structure will be able to put in an ability to, hey, if you're a player that's at South Alabama, or you're a player that's at Grambling, and you sign to play here and there's a incentive and tenure-based situation, if you decide to transfer, especially up or at a higher level or to a school with, a better situation, then there is a portion of a buyout that school has to pay for you to be able to do that. But until we're able to structure anything around NIL, none of this is going to be possible. So I think that is a secondary thing, or that will be a great symptom of a structure-based NIL situation that is true in nature.
Jake, through all of this, I wonder if the NCAA and those who are left up there, I don't even know what they do anymore, I wonder if they're quietly saying to themselves, I told you so, to all the people who wanted to pay the players. Do they feel like they held back the floodgates as long as they possibly could, and that everything bad that's happened to the sport in the last 5 or 6 years, that they just had to get out of the way of, and they were doing the right things all along?
Well, I've had this theory for a while that the NCAA wanted to let this thing get as bad as possible to force some sort of congressional action that would therefore tie college football to the NCAA. Because I think that's their only hope. I think that's the only way that college football doesn't say, you know what, all right, NCAA, bye, you have no teeth anymore, this and that. If there is some sort of congressional or legislative action that ties NIL to the NCAA, it therefore ties college football to the NCAA, giving NCAA power back. Now, that is a theory of mine. I think that's the only way that they could save themselves with college football, and even moving forward at this rate, college basketball.
Yeah, I wonder how, if this proposed breakaway happens, in a couple of years that everybody thinks is inevitable, that's a whole new gigantic enforcement apparatus that the Power 5 conferences are going to have to, number one, put together. Number two, they're going to have to pay for. So that's a gigantic headache in its own right. I wonder why nobody has said, okay, NCAA, we understand you've got these pieces. You had some form of an enforcement arm, even though it wasn't effective. Why don't we keep those people in place, let them do what they do, and then reestablish some form of like power structure and teeth so they can actually enforce some things? Like, do you not see, it becoming a big old bleep show if the Power 4 conferences have to create their own structure?
Well, I think it's already a bleep show, but what I do like the thought of, and this is something else we talked with Jim Cabal about, is that if you do have a breakaway structure of the Power 4 and maybe a couple other teams, I think there's some teams in the Power 4 that shouldn't be in the Power 4. They're just locked into a conference that is one of the biggest. What I'm interested to see is if that were to happen and you were to have this Super League, does it turn into one big conference? Like, for example, do you just go to one media member and say, hey, we're packaging all of this together and have one enforcement wing, therefore it's consistent for everybody? It's not SEC and Big Ten have their own enforcement and the Big 12 have their own enforcement. That's still part of this breakaway society. But as far as a timeline goes, I don't know how you could do anything from the standpoint of all, the Power 4 teams breaking away into a Super League, going to make that media play and doing that until these current media situations that run through like 2032 are done. So if you're the NCAA, are you able to sit there and look and say, well, it seems like unless there's some sort of change that happens or contract that ends up void, we still have about 5 to 6 years to figure this out. I think it's a total bleep show because they let all of it out of the box at once with no structure. But I actually trust the Power 4 conferences coming together more than the NCAA because I've seen the NCAA with selective enforcement. I've seen the NCAA be wildly inconsistent and hypocritical, and I've seen the NCAA try and take money out of the players' pockets since they were introduced. So I don't trust them as far as I can throw them.
Jake, who's been your most surprising transfer so far? Bringing it back local here to South Carolina, where we're in Clemson and South Carolina territory. I'm kind of scratching my head at 4-star freshman Air Noland, who left Ohio State to go to South Carolina, where he knows he's going to sit behind Lenore Sellers for at least 2 years. Some of these decisions that are being made are just head scratchers. And on top of that, when you look at the transfer portal just opening on Wednesday, even hours after this thing opened, the 3,000 some odd players who had entered the portal, over half were already committed. I look at that and say, that's tampering. That's weird. What's going on in these situations?
Yeah, well, look, the tampering thing, you're never going to stop it. Like, there's no way to stop it. People are just going to talk through third parties. So you might as well just, you're Don Quixote trying to kill windmills at this point when it comes to tampering. You just got to hope that either you're better at tampering or your program's so good the tampering is basically ineffective. The Air Noland decision, I'm 100% with you. I don't understand that one unless you were changing positions. or you heard something about Lenoris that none of us know, which he isn't going anywhere. He's in a great spot. We did a big preview on them about a week and a half ago. Cohn's really high on South Carolina this year. But to me, the obvious answer is it's Nico at Tennessee. I mean, bro, what are you doing? Like, it's not like you had all this leverage because you balled out so much last year. You could name your price. You were actually the weakness. Tennessee made the playoff because of their run game and defense. It wasn't the offense. Josh Heupel got Joe Milton drafted, buddy. It ain't him. It's you. And you're listening to the wrong people. And his dad seems like LeVar Ball on steroids, man. I would have to say Nico.
We've spent a lot of time over the past week breaking down this whole Nico story. And, I told you before, I'm a petty X. I would want to see him get busted all the way down to the FCS. If he wants to play, you're going down to a stadium that's got a track around it. You know what I'm saying? But I want to get your thoughts on what Urban Meyer had to say. And I'm sure you've seen this by now, his quote that was out there from On3 Sports. And I'm not going to read the quote, but basically he was asking Tennessee fans if they would give Josh Heupel grace for standing on principle and letting Nico go if they were down in games that they probably shouldn't be down in. He mentioned Florida in that situation. And to me, that's kind of a knock on Florida by saying you're down to Tennessee at halftime.
Yeah, look, I mean, Urban Meyer talking about team culture, I don't think is, the best spokesman for it. But I think he's got a great point. Like, how long is that leash? Like, Josh Heupel, again, at the end of the day, I think he made the right move. But I think most Tennessee fans, including the one that got kidnapped by a South African gang and then released, and the first thing he wanted to know is what happened to Nico. I don't think the fan base is going to just be, standing on business with Josh Heupel if all of a sudden you look up and you're 4-6. Because I know how fans are. There'll be some, but there are a lot more. Fan is short for fanatical. So there's a reason it's fanatical. And it's easy to say right now when we're sitting here in April, when there's no games being played or bullets flying, nobody's making fun of you at work. Nobody's talking about this disastrous Tennessee season. I don't think that leash is very long. I think Urban Meyer is right. But I also think Josh Heupel made the right decision, which shows you the terrible situation that Nico put Tennessee in.
Jake, tell me about this video tricking tourists into thinking that David Cohn is Elon Musk's cousin. How did this come about? I mean, were you guys just making the road trip and said, hey, this is an idea, we could have some fun with this? And do you feel ashamed of yourself for tricking those poor Asian tourists?
No, we just out-Chinese the Chinese. They've been tricking us for 35 years. No, so we got invited to the White House for the Ohio State national championship celebration and got to meet Donald Trump, which was awesome, and talk to J.D. Vance and those guys. And so the plan was to just go to D.C. and use it as like a networking thing. But we were like, hey, we might as well shoot some content while we're outside. We had no plan. There was no like, hey, we're going to go try and trick people to think this is Elon Musk's cousin. Just my brother being the Joaquin Phoenix Joker-minded individual that he was, we had some Chinese people come up to us and asking for reporters, and Blaine told them we're here showing around, because Cohn looks a little bit like everybody on the planet, including Elon Musk. And Blaine, my brother, told the Chinese tourists that this was Elon Musk's cousin, Delon Musk, and they 100% believed it, hook, line, and sinker. And so now we really think if we want to see how many people, if we were to go to China, which may not be the best time right now, we could convince that David Cohn is actually really Elon Musk's cousin, Delon Musk.
Jake, I was there was nothing but a wall separating me and then candidate Trump way back in was it 2014, I think. He came by our radio station to do a live interview in the studio next door to ours. Everybody got to go meet the guy, not us. We were live on the air. We didn't get a chance to walk around and shake hands and say hello. I just wonder, as fanatical as football fans are, do you think J.D. Vance knocked himself out of the next presidential election by fumbling the trophy? Because, my God, that was bad.
No, I think he actually won Michigan because of it. He's gonna win. He's gonna win Ohio anyway, just because regardless at the end of the day, he is an Ohio State alum and he does really well in that state. But look, I thought he kind of saved it about as good as he could. He said, after Ohio State won, he never wanted anybody to hold the trophy again. But to me, it's part of a bigger conversation. The trophy is terrible. Yeah. It is the worst trophy in sports. Like, we got to get a better, like, the crystal ball was so awesome. Like, I thought that was like the best it could be with the BCS. This trophy just looks funny. The base isn't screwed on right. We got to fix that. The sport's too great to have a sucky trophy.
At the very least, lock this thing in, like lock the top into the base so that it's not two pieces just fly in every direction.
Well, I do think he missed a golden opportunity to say, and this is why we need to bring manufacturing back to America.
Jake Crain, host of Crain and Company. Look up his work. He's absolutely fantastic. At Jake Crain _ on Twitter. Appreciate your time as always, buddy. Good to talk to you.
Hey, same here, brother. Appreciate you guys having me and hope everybody has a great Easter weekend.
Coming your way next, you heard me ask Jake Crain about it at the very beginning of that interview. Jake Paul is fighting again. Does he stand a chance? And is he trying to pull the wool over our eyes yet again? Are you going to buy the pay-per-view? That conversation on the other side of the break on the Fan Upstate. Tolos, let's get caught up on what you're saying on the text line, the Hub City Spartan Burgers text line, 844-326-3663, about 3 hours away from first pitch out there at Fifth Third Park against Bowling Green. The Hot Rods. Dewey texts in and says, I thought legends get their jerseys retired. This guy doesn't meet that criteria, talking about Shedeur Sanders. And these things happen 20 years after leaving college, not 4 months after. He didn't say the but he doesn't have to. I'll do it for him. Texter says, does anyone think that NIL is not bat crap crazy already? Besides Rob Brown, you can legally pay people to not attend your rival school. College football is dead. Well, I wouldn't go that far, Texter. I wouldn't say college football is dead. It's certainly changing, and I wouldn't say it's changing for the better. But hopefully, what Jake Crain had to say in that last interview, the theory, in case you missed it, in case you weren't paying attention to that one little section, is that the NCAA let this thing get as crazy as it's gotten because everybody wanted them to stop having control of the sport. They wanted to let this thing go pure chaos so that they could be back around and they could be there when the sport says, hey, we need your help. We need you guys to step back in and rein this thing back in. I mean, nothing's going to happen until some form of, protection is afforded to whichever entity runs college football to actually enforce its rules. Nothing is going to happen. That has to happen first. And it's going to have to take an act of Congress, but Congress doesn't want to get involved with that, which kind of surprises me. That Tommy Tuberville, ex-head coach at Auburn, who is he a senator? I forget. A rep? Either way, I'm surprised that Tommy Tuberville is not able to get all of the Southern representatives and senators kind of in lockstep on this thing. The senators from Michigan care. The representatives from Ohio, they care. Pennsylvania cares. Texas cares. California, I don't know. I don't know what they care about out there. Oregon cares. I think they can make that happen. I just don't think that they want to weigh in on something like that, which is surprising because they'll weigh in on a bunch of stuff they have no business weighing in on. But they won't weigh in on this. They won't help out the NCAA. If you haven't heard yet, this was just announced earlier today that Jake Paul is going to fight again. 28-year-old Jake Paul, with 12 fights under his belt, 7 KOs, 11-1 record, is going to face the 54-6-1, 39-year-old Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. Jake's going to fight another over-the-hill, once great fighter again. Like, Jake, what you're doing is transparent as hell. Everyone knows. We don't get fooled again. Yeah, we're not going to get fooled again. You pulled the wool over our eyes. You had us all buy into this Mike Tyson, Jake Paul charade, this fake fight, this fixed farce that we all saw on pay-per-view. There's that old saying, a fool and his money are easily parted. I think we're going to see that. I mean, who is that big of a Jake Paul fan that they're going to tune in and watch Jake Paul fight a 40-year-old now? Oh, it's not good enough to beat up on 60-year-olds. Now you got to beat up on 40-year-olds. That'll show them. This is a quote from Jake. 5 years ago, I stepped into the ring for my pro debut after a single amateur fight, and every fight since has been a step towards becoming world champion. I just defeated the baddest man on the planet, and now I'm going against a former champion who Conman Canelo couldn't finish. Chavez Jr. is Mexican, but I, El Gallo de Dorado, which translates to the Golden Rooster, that's what he calls himself, have the will and heart of the great Mexican fighters. Jake, I'm not sure you want to upset Mexican boxing fans. I'm not sure that's the fight you want to pick. But then again, he is Jake Paul, and he'll fight anybody, whether they're, young and stable on their own 2 feet. They're going to fight at the 200-pound weight limit. He's going to have to drop 27 pounds from where he fought against Mike Tyson, which was 227. Most Valuable Promotions will co-promote with Golden Boy Promotions, Oscar De La Hoya's company. It's going to be available on pay-per-view. And I hope to God that you Tolos are smart enough that you will not give Jake Paul your money again. Don't be stupid. Don't give him your money again. Dewey says, does this mean we get to hear Rob Brown and Lonzo fight again over the fight? Lonzo is a Jake Paul fan. And Lonzo is a fan of big, sweaty, jacked up dudes in their underwear. I can't fathom people like that. I don't understand them. That's okay. It's Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson. Tolos, be a part of the stream on Facebook, Twitter, and on YouTube. Jump into the conversation. Shop it up with the other Tolos. Kane is there. JD is there. Madcraft, Dan B, the whole crew is around. On the other side of the break, now that the Masters is in the rear view, what are the biggest questions and storylines surrounding golf for the rest of the PGA season? Love to get your thoughts as well on this, Tolos. Those of you who love golf as much as I do. We'll talk about it next. Yes, Tolos, I am one of those Johnny-come-latelys who watched the Masters and is going to get out on the course and play immediately. Like, I'm mad at myself that tomorrow is the first round of golf I've played in 2025. Come on. Like, golf is a game for degenerates and addicts who spend all of their time on the course. That's who I want to be. I want to be among you. I want to be one of you. I want to be on the course, and I will be tomorrow, heading out to play a round of golf. First time picking up a club outside of swinging around at Topgolf like 2 weeks ago, all season. Honestly, Tolos, now's time for a live poll right here on the Fan Upstate. How badly am I going to shoot? Like, when I'm an okay golfer, when I've been out playing for a season, and like when I was out playing every week or every other weekend, I was not a great golfer, but I was shooting upper 80s, low 90s, upper 80s to mid 90s. How badly am I going to shoot tomorrow, not having played a round of golf yet this year? I'm either going to break the club record or I'm going to break the club record in a bad way. So what do you think, Tolos? 844-FAN phone, 844-326-3663. You can jump in on the Hub City Spartan Burgers text line, 844-326-3663. You can also get in on the stream where Scotty from BMW, man, he says I'm going to shoot 101. Says I'm going to shoot 101. 101, triple digit, Scotty. If I go triple digits. Like, I'm not out there trying to get my PGA Tour card, right? Like, I'm not counting every single little thing. You're going to say, like, well, do you really shoot a 90, 95 if you're not counting every single little thing? I don't know. Like, if you fill up a shot, you get to take one more. You know? Extra, copious amounts of mulligans. That's how I play golf. The RBC Heritage 2025 is happening right now, and the scores are down there in a good way, down there. Siwoo Kim and Justin Thomas tied for first place at 10 under. JD says Diesel takes 20 mulligans and still shoots a 95. Well, what do you shoot, JD? That's what I want to know. Justin Thomas, didn't have a great Masters, but he's playing well here at the RBC. Andrew Novak, Russell Henley tied for second at -9. You got Scotty Scheffler sitting at -8, so 2 shots off the lead. He's through 11 today. Colin Morikawa there. Akshay Bhatia is there. Lucas Glover is there. Lucas had a terrible Masters. Terrible Masters. Like, I talked him up. I said, this guy might have a chance to go win the whole thing. I mean, it was a stretch to say it, but considering how he was crushing the ball down the fairway, he was great from greenside. He was great on par threes. I thought Lucas had a chance to have a big Masters, and big was the score. Unfortunately, it was big in the wrong way. Dewey says golf is for rich people and nerds. I mean, I can't argue about the nerds thing. Rich people, I don't know. You can get into golf relatively inexpensively. Like, don't let that be the reason you don't go out and play golf. I think Dewey is just because they won't let you behind the wheel of a golf cart. I think that's why you're upset. They're like, oh, that guy. If he's got to wear a helmet when he's walking through the parking lot, we can't let him drive one of our golf carts for insurance reasons. But now that the Masters are over, what are we going to be talking about in golf for the remainder of the PGA and LIV seasons? Well, couple things come to mind. I'd love to get your thoughts on it as well, Tolos. 844-326-3663. And a reminder, coming up at 5 o'clock, I'll be joined by Luke Easterling of Athlon Sports. He is just excellent when it comes to covering the NFL draft. If you got NFL draft questions, go ahead and get them to me now on the text line. Hold them until the interview starts at 4 o'clock and drop them there. Would love to get your thoughts and your questions to Luke so that he can provide you with the best possible answers. But talking point number one, now that the Masters are in the rear view, Scotty Scheffler. That's got to be a big one, right? It's got to be a big one. Again, Scotty playing well right now at the RBC. He's not Snoop D-O double G, but somehow, some way, he's got to find a way to get back there in the winner's circle. Scotty played okay at the Masters. He's got to start winning some majors, though, because I think a lot of people would look at Scotty Scheffler at 27, 28 years old as one of those guys who could be on a short list to go win the career Grand Slam. But he's got 3 majors to go to get there. He's won the Masters twice, but doesn't have the U.S. Open, doesn't have the Open Championship, and doesn't have the PGA Championship. Now, could he get hot and win multiple majors in a year? Yeah, I do believe that Scotty Scheffler is that guy. He is that level of talent. He's one of those guys that you want him finishing if you're not a Scotty Scheffler fan and you're one of the other golfers on the course. You want Scotty constantly finishing in that -5, -6, top 10s, but not playing his absolute best. Because if he gets hot, Scotty Scheffler's like a dang Terminator, man. He is going to go scorched earth on the field, week in, week out. He's not going to talk. He might get arrested a time or two, but you never know. Scotty says, any of y'all ever play Peach Valley down in Chesney? I learned to play there. That place was great and cheap. Never played Peach Valley down in Chesney. Scotty, are you a big deal down there? Would they let us on the course if they saw your face? Like, would they let us out there, or would they charge us more? JD says, I think Rory may go on a tear this summer because Scotty Scheffler hasn't quite been himself this past year. That's true. That's true. Kane says, I prefer mini golf, and they call it golfing for the poors. Oh, the course is closed now, says Scotty. Sorry, man. Hate to hear that. You hate to see how many of these courses are closing down. I had 2 right there beside my house. One that I played a lot. One that closed down just before I got into golf. I live in Malden. Used to live over by the Bonnie Bray golf course in Malden, which closed down. Fished the ponds there for a long time after the club shut down. Some good fishing there, I'm just saying. And then right over next to that was the Hejaz course that turned into Legacy Pines. It was great. Loved that course. Loved what Tommy Beershank had done over there. But alas, the weight and the potential financial windfalls of selling your land to a real estate developer, those get heavy. Madcraft says, Scotty, the new parking garage right at the stadium is easiest. Cost you $10, though. So, yeah, I think Scotty could get hot this year and have a big year, so that's certainly a talking point worth getting into. What do you think, Tolos? 844 fan phone. I'm looking at some of the young guys, though. Some of the young guys who may be trying to push the Justin Thomases and Jordan Spieths out over the upcoming years. Justin Thomas and Jordan Spieth. I think it's Justin that is one or two majors away from completing the career Grand Slam as well, but he's on the wrong side of time, age-wise, to maybe go out there and get it done. But I'm really excited to see what happens with Ludwig Oberg. He's currently sitting at -2 at the RBC, and Akshay Bhatia, who's sitting at -7. Akshay is just one of those guys who has a body type that makes you scratch your head. Like, how is that guy good at golf? I mean, a golf club is bigger around than he is. How does that guy go out there and compete with the dudes who are out there cranking weights in the weight room trying to get big so that they can blast it down the fairway? It's just incredible. It just goes to show you that it's not always like cookie cutter. You don't have to do it that way. Let's see here. I'm going to just trust this caller, put them right on the air because I'm riding solo and I can't take a phone call off the air. Caller, who's this? And what do you want to talk about? Hello, Tolo. Hey.
Jersey Joe here.
Hey, Joe.
What's going on, bud?
Hey, buddy. Just talking sports on a Friday, talking golf. Are you into golf? I hear
you, man.
Yeah.
I was sad about Bonnie Bray and Legacy Pines. I used to play both of them.
Man, I could walk to Legacy Pines. It was easy for me to get out there and get in 9 first thing in the morning. I could play 18 on like weekdays early in the morning and finish all 18 just before having to come to work. But 9 was a piece of cake. I could get out there and play 9 all week long, and because it was that close. And now I'm sad that it's gone.
And now we got to deal with Carolina Springs.
Well, you know, it's got the 18th. I put a lot of golf balls in the pond on 18 at Carolina Springs.
Oh, of course, yes.
So what do you want to talk about?
Especially on, well, I was just talking about the golf there.
Yeah.
Golf.
Who do you?
I'm not a spectacular golfer. I'm a beer golfer.
Well, that's all that matters.
The better I get.
Well, the question is, what's going to be higher, the number of beers you drink or the number of balls you lose?
Probably beers that I drink.
See, I've learned, Jersey Joe. Like, to me, I got to keep it within like 7 beers over a round. If it's more than that, I'm going to start shooting 8s and 9s and 10s on the back 9. It's going to get bad.
Well, see, I find out the more I drink, the more relaxed I feel, and I start hitting the ball better.
Oh, that's fair. I mean, it worked for John Daly. Why not?
That's right.
Do you think Scotty can get it done? Do you think Scotty is a future career Grand Slammer?
Eventually, yes. I really do think that Rory is going to have a good season, this season.
Me too. I think he's going to start playing loose. Fun Rory's coming back out.
He had that good lead, and then of course let it slip away. But then he got it in the playoff. I really think he's gonna do something this year.
It's interesting. Are you getting out this weekend? Are you playing this weekend?
I'm going to try to go out and get out tomorrow and play. We'll see what happens.
Nice. Good luck out there. Don't lose too many balls.
I got to make sure the honey-do list is a little short,
Hey, just mark one thing off, and then you get to go out and have your fun.
Well, there you go.
Thanks, Joe.
All right, Diesel.
Peace. That's Jersey Joe, ladies and gentlemen. And I want you guys to always feel like you can call in at 844-326-3663. It's obviously the best if you call in to talk about the topic that we're talking about right then and there. If you're not, maybe we hold you till later in the segment without taking us too far out into left field. We're going to get into outer space in the next segment of the show. Signs of alien life. And I want to ask you, Tolos, do you believe that aliens are already here? And which athletes do you think are aliens? Because they just do things that nobody should be able to do. Be ready to call in and text in about that topic. A couple more things to look at this season. Obviously, PGA versus LIV. Is anybody else going to jump ship to LIV? Is anybody going to come back from LIV? I don't know, man. Like, for me, these LIV golfers look tired. They look worn out, and they're playing less golf. They're playing shorter rounds. They're doing shotgun starts. The rounds don't take as long. They're not playing long days, meaning like they're not teeing off at 2 p.m. and finishing at 6:30. They're playing fewer rounds. They got the competitive element to it. I understand why the golf side of things on LIV are compelling. I get that side of things. But they're also flying overseas a lot to play golf. And it's sure they're flying private, they're flying first class, whatever. But they just look tired, right? They don't seem like their heart is in it the way that it used to be. JD says, I've sliced the ball so badly it went virtually backwards. Madcraft says, JB, you shot par. I don't know what you guys are talking about. Sorry, I'm jumping into this conversation in the middle of it. JD says, we ain't scared to call. Well, okay, buddy. You know the number. You know the drill. JD says, let's go to Mars. If we're going to find that life, we're going to have to go farther than that. And, of course, Ryder Cup, that's going to be interesting as well. That one's not until September. We're going to have a ways to go until we find out, if we can bring one back for America. 844-FAN-PHONE, 844-326-3663. I still think you're wrong, Dewey, saying that golf is for rich people and nerds. You got to get out on the course and see what I'm talking about. Like, I used to go fish Legacy Pines all the time, And judging by the dudes that I would see out there on the course and the cuss words and the gambling and playing AC/DC while you're teeing off on number 10, because that was like right across the way from the pond that I would fish. Those aren't rich dudes. And they're not nerds either. They're degenerates and gamblers. Let's see here. Kane says they should have a golfing tournament where the best golfers on the PGA Tour I treat while they're golfing and they all get the same amount of alcohol, and whoever wins while drunk is the true expert. Boozing on the golf course as part of the events. I love it. Let's see. JD says, I'd love to see some of these professionals play while getting drunk. John Daly would smoke the field, says Madcraft. John Daly would smoke and drink while smoking the field. That's who John Daly was. He was the absolute GOAT at that. When we come back on the other side of the break, what athlete have you watched over the years and just said, oh my God, that dude is a freak. That dude is an alien. Who have you always suspected of being an alien when it comes to sports? Be ready to call in. Be ready to explain yourself, show your work, and there may be alien life out there in our very own cosmic neighborhood. We'll talk about it next on the Fan Upstate. Madcraft, you're going to have to be careful where you say things like that. On the stream, I get better the more I get in me. Yeah, man. Good to know. Put that on a promo, would you? Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson. Going to be talking NFL draft with Luke Easterling of Athlon Sports at 5 o'clock. He's a fantastic guest. You've heard him on these airwaves before. It's been a little while, but he's going to join the show, break down the Carolina Panthers. What he thinks about maybe the rumors of the Carolina Panthers possibly wanting to trade out of the number 8 spot. I think that would be an incredibly stupid thing to do, and I don't think Dan Morgan is stupid, but the people out there are talking about it, so I'm going to ask him about it. We'll ask him about running backs, and can Ashton Genty make drafting running backs in the first round cool again, and so much more. Your NFL draft questions as well. Luke Easterling is going to be here to answer them. So be ready. If you got NFL draft questions, I will ask Luke your questions for you coming up at 5 o'clock. But, I'd like to take the show in some weird directions sometimes, because that always spawns the best conversation. It really does. We had like a 30-minute conversation about burger toppings on Monday as the Hub City Spartan Burgers were about to do their home opener over there at Fifth Third Park. They're going to play at 6:30 tonight, and they were unveiling their 101 topping burger bar. I asked you for your 5 toppings. You can only get 5. Your top 5 toppings that would go on your burger, and the conversation lasted for like 40 minutes. So, the oddball conversations get people talking. And I do want to bring this back to sports, okay? I do have a way to bring this back to sports, which is, give me your top 3 like alien athletes of all time. The ones that were just nuts. The ones that could just do things with the ball, with the puck, with their arm, whatever, that just absolutely blew you away. Text that in at 844-326-3663. But if you haven't been paying attention to the news out there, they think they might have found a planet that can sustain alien life. That's freaky. Like my wife gets mad at me when I watch space YouTube videos at night. She's like, I don't want to be thinking about that, man. That's existential dread, and you're going to put that in my brain right before we go to sleep? Like, I love watching that kind of stuff. I mean, thinking about just the absurdity of the Voyager space probe going way, 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 way out there, way farther than they thought it would. And it's still broadcasting information back. And this thing was sent out like in the 70s. That stuff fascinates me and terrifies me at the same time. But scientists at Cambridge have been using the James Webb Telescope, and they think they found a planet that they qualify as a Hycean world, which means early indications say that planet could be covered in liquid water. And liquid water, as far as we know, is the most important prerequisite when it comes to sustaining life on a planetary surface. The planet's called K2-18b. It's 124 light years away from Earth. It's in its star's habitable zone. And they think that maybe, just maybe, there are chemical compounds in the atmosphere and liquid water on the planet, which in theory would mean that there is life all over that planet. Does that not fascinate the hell out of you guys? Does that not fascinate? Madcraft said Lane Kiffin likely already recruiting that planet. Class of 3012. Madcraft says existential dread is quite a phrase. Madcraft, answer the question. Help me out here. Help me out. Your top 3 alien players, regardless of sport, that just blew you away with what they were able to do. But for the evidence and the suggestions that they have with this James Webb Telescope, they can't obviously see 124 light years away. They can't look into the atmosphere, get down to the planet's surface and be like, oh, there's like a little amoeba-like thing in the water over there. They can't actually do that, but they can study the way that light reflects coming off of that surface, and they can compare that to what they already know about how light reflects off of certain gases and molecules in our atmosphere, and they can make inferences that what's on the surface of that planet is similar to what's on the surface of our planet, and that, you know, there could be life on the surface. I find this stuff fascinating. Does anybody else? Like, I know we're all sports nerds here, but are we nerds for something else other than sports? Like space. I find it really, really fascinating. They said that the gathering of information had gone from theoretical to observable, and that a Hycean world with an ocean teeming with life is the scenario that best fits the data we have. That's crazy. They don't know yet, though, like what the conditions on the surface are. Like they believe that it could be as cold as like 28 degrees on the surface, or it could be as hot as 328 degrees on the surface. They don't know. They don't know. So fascinating stuff, I think. Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson. The players that you find alien, the players that blew you away with what they were able to accomplish off the field. Chris Arnett says Walter Payton. Walter Payton was insane. To have come from a small school, to have had the career that he had in the NFL, to have an award named after him. That dude was an alien. I mean, Adrian Peterson was probably right there too. I think that's just like a product of the era, right? Could you imagine like Walter Payton if he was playing college football today? Walter Payton wouldn't have stayed at Jackson State. He would have transferred up. He'd have been playing for Auburn. He would have been playing for Alabama. So I think that's where a lot of these guys are screwing up, is that you can go and be a legend somewhere at Jackson State, or you could be a legend like Adrian Peterson at Georgia Southern, or Armani Edwards at App State. You can go be a legend somewhere. And if you're good enough, the league will find you. The NFL will find you. And you can go off and have a great career. You don't have to jump ship from school to school to school, from year to year to year. So Walter Payton, fantastic example there. Chris Arnett says Jordan was an alien for a while there. He was. He says Tiger is another one of his alien players, just absurdly talented. Tiger's ability to focus, that's what always, made me laugh about Tiger, is he had this ability to focus and absolutely dominate a field and dominate a course. But he couldn't stay focused in his marriage. He was laser focused on the course. Get him back to the clubhouse, he's looking around everywhere, left to right. Oh, look at that blonde over there. Hey, look at that brunette over there. Let's see here. On the stream, alien players. That's what we're talking about here. Madcraft says Phelps is all I got, and I think he's more of a fish than anything. Michael Phelps was on my list, Madcraft. Michael Phelps, just absurd. He also says, I believe aliens wouldn't spare their time doing such trivial activities. Of what? Sports, or of looking into the skies, looking for other life? Because now we're opening up a huge can of worms, Madcraft. The dark forest theory. Look that up. If you want to get scared, dark forest theory, that's some crazy stuff. It's that other aliens know that other alien civilizations are out there, but they don't talk. They don't broadcast, hey, we're over here, like we do, because they know that other alien civilizations are dirty and mean and cruel and would absolutely demolish their planets. So they don't talk to the cosmos the way that we do. What if we're inviting some big scary alien civilization to come our way. We're going down some weird paths. And Armada Tolo says my three are Logan Paul, Jake Paul, and Rob Brown for his ice skating skills. What do you mean by that? An Armada Tolo. What do you mean by Rob Brown's ice skating skills? Because I don't know any. Is there a video? Are there photos? Did Rob bust his ass? Did Rob bust his lip? Oh, you're talking about Rob on the ice at the Swamp Rabbits game the other night. I did hear that Rob busted his ice out there. Madcraft says Rob would be considered a dangerous weapon with skates on an ice rink. Scotty says, I'm sure he's still hurting from that graceful moment. Scotty says Diesel's throwing zingers to Tiger Woods. He was throwing zingers to a bunch of divorcees, that's for sure. Kane says, I think an Armada Tolo is Rob Brown. See, Kane, I think it's you. I think you're jumping from account to account to account during the show to keep us off our game. The Fermi paradox. Yeah. Diesel, Rob slipped on the ice. We assume that aliens are more involved than the human race. But what if they are inferior to the human race, and who would be on that list of aliens? I have considered that Kane. What if we're the smart ones, right? Like as dumb as we are as humans and as violent and warlike and infighting and all that stuff. What if we're the smart ones? Is that not a scary thought, right? What if all these other planets out there that have life on them are just covered with like cows, you know, which are much, much more peaceful. Wire to wire, Diesel and Cole Bryson talking about aliens in this segment. Does that not freak you out, you guys that have heard this news? I love it. I think it's fascinating. I know some people, we may have some religious tolos in the audience, and they may think differently about this news. They may worry about it more than others. They may disbelieve it. I don't know. Let's go to the phone lines and bring in who do we have, Tolo?
Oh, I was just confirming the number. That's all.
Oh, well, which number are you trying to confirm?
The Tolo takeover line. So.
Oh, well, that's us. You're a Toloer and you're on the air. You can take over right now if you want to.
I don't really have much to add.
Oh, okay.
To the conversation, I was just checking the number.
Okay, good talking to you. Bye. That was weird. A little drive-by. Madcraft says, I'm religious and I love science. Well, yeah. I mean, you can believe. You can believe. But you can also believe we're not the only ones. DB says, weirdest call ever. Good point. I'm just calling to say I don't have a whole lot to say, said the caller. Yeah, I like those. Chris Arnett, Peyton, Jordan, Tiger, Walter Payton, not Peyton Manning, because that dude is as human as it gets. I would say Bo Jackson. Bo Jackson was one of my alien players. He was just so absurdly good at everything he did. Multiple sports. Bo knows. I feel like that dude could have played professional ping pong. Give him like 6 months training. He could get good at anything, right? He could be a ballerina if he wanted to. He could probably be a professional basketball player. Like he wasn't tall, but he could muscle dudes out of the way. He'd be one hell of a power forward. I mean, like, would you want to stand in the lane when Bo Jackson was driving on you? No, you wouldn't. JD says Peyton's forehead is an alien. Kane says that guy works for me. He's part of my ring of spies. Are you talking about the caller, or are you talking about the guy that changed his name earlier to an Armada Tolo? Let's go to the phone lines, bring in another caller. Caller, identify yourself. Who's this? What do you want to talk about?
Guy, Greenville.
Hey, Guy.
How are you?
I'm great today. How are you? I've had like so much coffee today. I am jazzed, and I'm playing golf tomorrow. I'm feeling good. How are you?
Well, I'm coming out of work, so I'm just going to pick up the dogs.
Right on.
Life is.
So what's up?
Well, I'm wondering, and it gives away my age. I think that Gale Sayers was an alien because he was able to jump into portals when you go to tackle him and just come out of another portal.
I love the players who, like, you go to hit them and they shrink down into a ball, right? They shrink down and then they just pop up, 3 yards down the field. Great one.
And you're tackling air. You're just tackling air.
Uh-huh. So what do you think about this scientific news that there could be alien life 140 some odd light years away? Does it freak you out?
I mean, it's got to be closer. I think it, and I'm not trying to get on anybody's bad side.
That's okay.
I can't believe that we can possibly be the only thing out there.
Right?
Because even if you're religious, that's all God wanted was this?
Yeah, the Bible doesn't say we're the only planet with life on it.
No. And that's never really discussed. I mean, a lot of things that are our current agendas really don't have a biblical anything.
Well, I don't, you mentioned your age there. I doubt you know the rapper named Lil Dicky, but he did an entire song about what if aliens came to Earth. Would we be able to like battle against them with the weapons that we have? Would they be like way more advanced than us? And it's all packaged around a guy hooks up with a girl at a club, and now they got to figure out what to talk about. Now that they've finished doing their business, they got to figure out what to talk about. His mind starts racing, thinking about aliens. You got to look it up. It's funny as can be. It's a YouTube video.
Well, except if you meet someone and hook up, does any guy know what to talk about afterwards?
That's true. That's true. Our minds do kind of go blank after that is done.
Well, because the blood's gone.
It's all rushed back to where it's supposed to be.
This is all off the air, by the way, because I'm married with 3 kids. I don't need that, and I don't need to hear about it at church.
Well, guy could just be a title. It doesn't have to be a name.
No, it's a name.
Well, I can't help you there, guy. If your wife is listening, she's learning more about you, as we all are.
Yeah, and I could keep driving, I guess.
Appreciate you, guy. Have a good day.
You as well.
All right, let's go to the phone lines again and bring in Tolo. Who is this, and what do you want to talk about?
Hey, it's Jay and Greer, and I'm just looking at the question of the day. Who are the freaks? Who are the aliens?
Yeah.
And the one that comes to mind, I mean, I've got a list of like 6 or 7 in my head right now, but the one that really comes to mind is the obvious freak, and that's got to be Dennis Rodman. I mean, if he's not an alien, I don't know who was.
Maybe he knows aliens and he's just trying to fit in with the aliens.
I mean, that guy was from another planet, though. I mean, the energy level, I mean, just go watch him bounce, man. It's ridiculous.
Well, he has an alien amount of game. If he can look the way that he does, dress the way that he did, paint his hair the way that he did, and still get Carmen Electra to go out with him.
Well, not only that, but also, I mean, be one of the best rebounding basketball. I mean, I can't think of anybody that would top him. I mean, there's guys that are close, but I mean, who on the boards?
Yeah.
If you had to pick somebody, who are you going to? I mean, he's the first guy.
He was
Christian Okoye.
He was Draymond Green on steroids.
Yeah. I mean, just the way that this guy would just go back up and up and up again and again and again to get the same rebound. I mean, it was just, I mean, for anybody listening that's too young to remember D. Rodman, go watch some of his tape, man. The guy was ridiculous. But I'd add Christian Okoye, I mean, the Michael Jordan comparison, I mean, that's easy.
Yeah.
The Lawrence Taylors and oh God, I mean, you can go on and on.
I had Bo Jackson on my list.
Yeah. I mean, Bo could do a little bit of everything. There's no question.
A little bit of everything. He was elite at football and baseball. What are you talking about? A little bit.
Well, I mean, I'm saying though, look, his career wasn't what it could have been, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, and at the end of the day, I mean, Bo was one of those guys that just, I guess, polarized, more than anything else. So, I mean, yeah, I can see where Bo Jackson obviously goes in there. I mean, the guy was just massively talented. I mean, there's no question about that.
It's so tragic that his career got cut short the way that it did, because he would have been he was Reebok's answer to Nike and Jordan.
Well, and I mean, Derek Thomas is the exact same guy, right?
Yeah.
I mean, when you're looking at guys whose careers were cut short that were absolute freaks, that, what could you have done if you'd have had a couple more years or played out your potential?
Yeah, I mean, you got to look at even a guy like Len Bias at the same time. People thought that dude was going to be absolutely incredible, and then he didn't even make it to the league.
Yep. Yeah, too many of those stories. That's the shame of it. Too many of those stories, and I think that a lot of it goes back to kids coming out way too early, getting into, these situations where, I mean, you're giving a 20-year-old kid, an 18, 19, 20-year-old kid, millions of dollars and saying, hey, don't go kill yourself. Don't be a danger. Don't be a threat to yourself. Act right. And hoping that they'll do it.
You bring up such a great point. I have a question not dissimilar from that to ask of Luke Easterling from Athlon Sports coming up in 15 minutes about how, now that we've got, 4 or 5 years of guys like that, and we're going to keep having more and more years of guys like that with the incredibly selfish mindset making their way into the NFL, how that's going to change the league going forward. Because you still got the old school dudes in the league right now who can check the young ego guys. But those guys are going to be retiring every year.
No doubt. And, you see these guys coming out in certain sports. And, I mean, you don't see golfers going off the deep end like that typically. You don't see tennis players typically going off the deep end, right? I mean,
not as much money.
It's the kids that come out that, maybe have never had money. And all of a sudden, bam, here they are, multi-millionaires and 20 years old. I mean, I don't know that I could deal with that kind of money, and I'm a hell of a lot older than 20.
Yeah, we all say that, they should do this or we would do that, but we can't fathom what it's like to have $1 million at 17, 18 years old. We don't know what that's like.
No doubt.
And if we did know what that was like, we wouldn't be listening to this show. Appreciate the phone call. Call back anytime.
Will do.
All right, Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson on the other side of the break. Finally, counter to what our last caller was just saying and the selfishness of young athletes, there is a player who you haven't even seen play a down of football yet, who is already filthy rich, who is doing great things, who is being a positive member of his community. We'll talk about it next. Bryce Underwood is set to make $12 million at Michigan, and he hasn't even played a snap for the Wolverines yet. But as we were talking with Jay and Greer in the last segment, and I really appreciate Jay and Greer picking up the phone, calling in, and be a part of the show. Please call in more often, Jay. You're a great caller. Other Tolos as well. Get out your phones and dial 844-326-3663. You got to feel good about Bryce Underwood and his desire to do the right thing already, right? He's going to get a tremendous amount of money for playing at Michigan, and he's helping out his hometown community already in this short clip of audio that you're going to hear where this was a produced piece, by the way, for social media, where Bryce helps a security guard who is kind of a man of many traits, a man of many talents at his high school by getting him a new family vehicle. Try not to choke up listening to this audio.
The first interaction I had with Bryce, he probably doesn't remember. I do.
Was it a soccer game?
Yeah, soccer game. I was taking tickets at a soccer game. Walked past. I said, "You the quarterback?" He said, "Yeah." We had a good conversation. I'm like, "Oh, this kid's humble." Like, wasn't anything cocky about him. I'm like, I like him.
First time I met his daughter, right? So I was like, "Give me a 5." She was like she turned away from me. I'm like, Michael's like, "Give him a 5."
We've built a bond that's outside of sports, is outside of school. Like, he knows I care about him. I know he cares about me because, like he said, one of his memories is with my daughter. And like, what high school kid really cares about an adult's children? Like, that's a real bond. It's not just fake, it's real.
Just having them there all the time to talk to, yeah, was great to have in school for sure. So, actually, I don't even know why I'm sitting here. It's your car, bro.
No, it's not.
No, it's your car, bro.
For what?
It's your car.
To drive for this sake?
No, this is your car, gang.
For real?
Yeah, bro.
Stop playing.
Bro, this is your car, bro.
Oh my goodness.
So, just with our partnership with Bryce, the Feldman team, we just love to be the part of this and give it back. And we're just happy to have you join the Feldman team with us, my friend.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Pleasure.
yeah.
He's always looking to help someone out. Like, he's just a great person in general. He was raised right. Like, he does things the right way in every aspect of life.
This kid's going off to college. He's going to make a tremendous amount of money. And his high school security guard says, "I bet you don't remember the first time we met." Yeah, I do. It was at a soccer game. You were taking tickets. Who remembers that kind of stuff? Like, this is what NIL was supposed to be. You use your platform to make money, advertise a business. I don't care if Feldman Chevrolet gave away the car, wrote it off from taxes. I don't care if Bryce paid for the car out of his own money. That part of it is inconsequential. He's doing the right thing. He's bringing attention to a business, and he's helping out people in his own community. That is a fantastic story. And I'm telling you, if you go on Bryce Underwood's Instagram and find the full video, it'll make you choke up a little bit. It really, really will. When we come back, a great guest, Luke Easterling from Athlon Sports. We're going to go deep into the NFL draft. So, Tolos, if you got draft questions about your team, what they should do, rumors that you're hearing that they might do this or might do that, you want answers to those questions, now would be a good time to text them in at 844-326-3663. Luke Easterling of Athlon Sports coming your way next. Well, it is Wire to Wire with Diesel, but no Cole Bryson today. He is right over there on the other side of the hall training up a newbie to run another radio station here. So you got me rocking solo for the rest of the show today, except for this 15 minutes right now as I bring on an absolutely fantastic NFL guest, knows everything there is to know about the upcoming NFL draft, and of course, everything else on top of that. He's just that smart of a guy. We're joined right now by Luke Easterling of Athlon Sports. Luke, are you going to be traveling up to Green Bay for the draft, or are you covering from afar?
I am not traveling. I will be happily tucked in the home office with all the comforts of home and not at the frozen tundra, even though it'll be a little more palatable, I think, this time of year. But I'll be happy at home.
Well, it might be one of about 5 days out of the year that the weather up there is going to be nice, so you might be missing out. I did have a radio friend once who moved from Florida to Fargo, North Dakota to host morning radio. She lasted there about 3 months and said, bump this. I'm not staying in North Dakota anymore. I'm going back to Florida. So welcome into the show. We're going to be talking all things NFL draft in this segment. Want to start locally right here with our Carolina Panthers, the team that a vast majority of our Tolos here consider their number one team. We got some Falcons fans mixed in there, and the NFL. They're split kind of all over the place. But the Carolina Panthers over the past couple of drafts have gone heavy offense, sitting there at number 8. All signs point to staying put at 8, going edge. Jalen Walker out of Georgia. I know you have him as your selection for the Carolina Panthers in your latest mock draft, but we're hearing whisperings, we're hearing rumblings that the Carolina Panthers should or could trade back out of that number 8 spot. I think that would be a terrible mistake for them to do that, but if they were to do that, Luke, who's available behind Jalen that you think maybe could provide some facsimile to those services? And then, what should they do with that extra pick if they get one?
Yeah, I think honestly, it's weird. This draft, I think you're going to have way more teams trying to move back than ones that want to move up, just because I don't see the types of players. I don't think there's a massive difference between the player who's going to go 4 or 5 overall and the player who's going to go probably with the last pick of the first round. Like there's a very similar. I think there's a trio of really, really elite prospects at the top in Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter, and Ashton Genty. And after that, I think there's going to be a decent drop-off. And again, the depth of the class is really in that second and third tier. So for a team like Carolina, I think they could want to move back. I just don't know that they're going to find the deal that makes it worth it. Because when you look at a guy like Jalen Walker in particular, you can make some comparisons, I guess, to Jahad Campbell from Alabama. But, even he's going to be coming off. He's got a shoulder injury that he just had surgery on. So he probably won't be ready to play week 1. It'll really depend on his recovery. So with a guy like Jalen Walker, if you're glass half empty, you'll say, oh, he's a tweener. He's not good enough as an edge guy. He's not good enough as an off-ball linebacker. I just don't believe that. I think his versatility is a strength, not a detriment to him. And I think what I use to sell him is NFL defenses have to make splash plays nowadays. They've got to turn the ball over. They've got to get after the quarterback, and that's what he does. He makes big plays happen, whether he's in coverage, whether he's stuffing the run, whether he's going after the passer. No matter where he lines up, Jalen Walker makes big things happen for your defense. So for me, I'm with you. I would stick and pick there and take Walker. If they move back, I like the next tier of edge guys, but I don't know how much of a difference it makes. I think that the big thing for me is if you move back there, maybe you can try to replace that second round pick that you traded away in the Bryce Young deal. I know you've got a little bit of a later one where they could address that, but they have so many needs that's why I could see them moving back. But if they stick there, Jalen Walker just makes too much sense.
Luke, that's interesting the way you started that, saying that, there's maybe 3 or 4 elite prospects and then a lot of tweeners after that. I wonder if you attribute that to similar to what Tom Brady had to say a few months ago. And I know he was talking about the quarterback position specifically, but he was talking about NFL teams dumbing down the game to allow the inexperienced college players play. Now, I know that you predominantly cover the NFL, but do you think any of that has anything to do with this modern landscape of college football where players are bouncing from place to place to place and they're underdeveloped? Or do you think there was just something in the water, 21 years ago as these kids were coming out that made them just not quite as good this year for some reason.
No, I think, and again, I wouldn't say that they're not quite as good. What I mean by the drop off is that the second tier of prospects in this class are really, really deep. And so I think honestly, I would look at it glass half full and say, listen, these three players that I mentioned earlier are the truly special, like potential Hall of Fame players. And then that next group is just so wide. There's so many really solid players. I heard Daniel Jeremiah say it on NFL Network multiple times, where this is a meat and potatoes draft. It's like a full of really, really high quality starters, even if there aren't going to be a ton of superstars draft. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that, again, it's more about if you're trying to trade down, you're going to have a hard time enticing another team to move up for a guy that isn't that much better than the guy they're going to be able to stay and get at their original spot. It's not that either of those players are bad players. It's just that they're so similar. Why would you trade up? Like, what's the impetus to give up an extra pick when you can get a similar caliber of player down there? So I think those players are going to be really good in that range. And to your point about the changes in the game, I do cover college football to a large extent, which informs the draft work that I do. And so I think those games have always been different. And the ebb and flow and the pendulum has swung back and forth between, this is popular in the college game, and so now it's going to start translating to the NFL game. And the NFL is asking these guys to do, these types of things at this position. So now college teams are going to try to, start to develop that a little bit more. That song and dance has always happened to a certain extent. So I really don't see it having a massive impact. The portal, maybe it contributes to a certain extent, but you could also, again, look at it glass half full and say, yeah, but now you have a bunch of guys going to the next level who have changed teams 3 times and had to learn new offensive systems. And they're, when their coach gets fired, that won't be as much of a transition when they have to transition to a different scheme. So there's different ways to spin it. At the end of the day, the game is still football, and you still got to go out and you got to be a good teammate. You got to be smart. You got to be physical. You got to be athletic. All those things still translate. The details have always changed, but good players will always rise to the top.
Well, Luke, I tend to trust and take at face value anything Daniel Jeremiah has to say, because he's a fellow App State Mountaineer like myself, and I know that he's always right. And I love seeing that helmet that he has behind him when he shows up on ESPN.
Yeah, I literally just noticed that last night again. I was like, man, what the hell of a helmet?
What offense do you think Jackson Dart fits in the best? I've heard some rumors that he is rising and falling and kind of all over the place. He's shown a live arm. He has the ability to pass the ball downfield because that's what he was asked to do a lot at Ole Miss. But he's considered that he's weaker in the short and intermediary type of throws. Do teams look at that as a downside and say, well, I don't know, because we run a lot of that in our particular schemes? And where do you think Jackson Dart may fit the best?
Honestly, I'd love to see him in Los Angeles with Sean McVay. I think that would be a really, really fun fit for him in terms of the physical tools, like you said, are all there. And yes, Lane Kiffin's offense is kind of weird and it's not necessarily a very NFL offense, but it also asks some things of the quarterback that are kind of odd. And so I think that Sean McVay would take him and be like, hey, you can sit behind Matt Stafford for a year. Sorry, Matthew Stafford. I can't say Matt Stafford. People who are, if you've ever said the name wrong and Matthew Stafford stands get a hold of you on social media, it never goes well. So Matthew Stafford would be a great mentor for that type of quarterback, for a year or so. And then you get time in that system to learn those things. And then again, all the physical tools are there. He's a great athlete. I don't think he gets enough credit for his athleticism as a runner. And so I would love to see, again, what Sean McVay's offense, which again, they'll take their shots down the field, but it is a lot of, east-west type of route combinations and creating separation with pre-snap motion and things like that. I'd love to see Jackson Dart sit behind Stafford for a year, get in that offense that will be tailored to what he does well, but also really innovative and creative. That'd be a fun fit.
One of our diehard Tolos here, Madcraft, is a San Diego, and here I am messing up, LA Chargers fan. He wants to know your thoughts on whether the Chargers should go wide receiver, should they go D-line in round number 1, and what players do you think are probably going to be available to them once they finally do hear their names called?
Yeah, I think in the first round, it's interesting because, obviously you want to get as many weapons for Justin Herbert as possible. So they could go receiver there. They could go tight end, running back, depending on who's available. But I like all of those positions on day 2 as well. I think they'll have some solid options. To me, it's hard for me not to look at a head coach like Jim Harbaugh and not think he's going to want to be a trench guy in the first round. I just think that the depth of the interior defensive line class in particular matches up really well with their needs and is going to match up really well with that 22 spot if they're still, picking at that spot. And the guy, honestly, that stands out to me if he's still on the board is Kenneth Grant, who is somebody Jim Harbaugh knows really, really well coming out of Michigan, where he was the head coach a couple years ago. So, that type of player I think would make a ton of sense for them. I think the top 2 tight ends will be off the board. So again, I think they'll find better value there in the second round. Maybe they go running back that early if Marion Hampton is still there, but I don't expect him to be. Receiver is the intriguing one to me, but I just feel like a guy like Harbaugh is going to push hard to build in the trenches like they've done in the years past. Guys like Joe Alt, and now you've got the chance to do it in the defensive line. I think that would make a lot of sense for them.
Chatting right now with Luke Easterling, Athlon Sports, here on Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson. So D-line, is that where you think the big rush is going to be in the first round? I mean, the edge guys are kind of the sexy picks right now, and a lot of guys off the D-line and the edge up there in the top 10, top 15. Is that the position that you think is going to get the biggest run on in the first round?
Yeah, I really do. I think, honestly, a third of the first round is going to come from those 2 groups. I'll say that right now. Between the edge guys and the interior guys, we're going to see double-digit prospects come off the board in the first round from just the edge and the interior defensive line class. There's so many guys. Again, we've talked about Abdul Carter and Jayla Walker, who I consider an edge rusher, them at the top. But that next tier where you've got Donovan Ezeraku from Boston College, Mike Green from Marshall, James Pierce Jr. from Tennessee, both the Texas A&M guys, Nick Scorton and Shamar Stewart. You got so many edge guys that I think will come off the board there. Landon Jackson from Arkansas could push to be a first-round pick. And then the interior guys, again, I mentioned Kenneth Grant, but the other Michigan guy, Mason Graham, is going to be a top 10 pick. You got Walter Nolan from Ole Miss. You got so many guys that I think will be first-round picks at those positions in particular. That it's just going to be the depth is there, but I think it's going to go quick in those top 50 picks or so.
Luke, do you think Ashton Jeanty can make picking a running back in the first round sexy again? It really hasn't been for a long time. Running backs have been relegated to second and third round, and it's unfortunate because running backs are such a huge part of the college game. They've just been minimized so much in the NFL, but obviously last season we saw running backs playing crucial roles in big time games and not, coordinators not putting all of it on the quarterback to get it done. Is Ashton Jeanty the kind of guy who can make picking running back sexy again?
I mean, I would argue that started a couple of years ago because Bijan Robinson and Jahmyr Gibbs both went in the top 12, and they have lived up to that. They've been every bit, the type of player that you would hope to get with that pick. And so I think he's going to continue that trend. Yes. I think for a while there was this, prevailing opinion that, because we can get a productive running back in the third or fourth round, it's not worth it to spend a first round pick on a Diller. Like, yeah, well, if you want a special one though, there's a reason those guys cost what they cost. And so, even going back to guys like McCaffrey, who was the top 10 pick, and you can find cautionary tales along the way too. But, again, Barkley doing what he did last year, Bijan Robinson doing what he's done, Jahmyr Gibbs doing what he did last year in Detroit. Ashton Jeanty is on that level. He's that type of guy. That's why I think he'll be a top 10 pick. And I think, again, you can get productive, solid running backs into the third and fourth round, especially this year. It's a really deep running back class. And I think teams will be really happy with the depth that they can get in the third and fourth round. But you're not getting Ashton Jeanty there. You're not getting a 2,000-yard rusher. You're not getting the kind of guy he is, where he's 5'9", 215, super fast to run by everybody, but he can turn 3 would-be tacklers in at a time into a 60-yard touchdown. And like those guys, you want guys that can hurdle over people backwards. You got to pay for them. You got to draft them high when they're that special. Ashton Jeanty is absolutely that kind of guy, and I think that trend's going to continue. Where if you want a decent running back, sure, you can wait. If you want a superstar, you can't.
Talking to Luke Easterling, Athlon Sports, joining us here on the Fan Upstate. You can find him on Twitter at Luke Easterling. That's his name. Luke, what does your heart tell you about Aaron Rodgers? Does he want to play again? Is he gonna play again? You know, he had the comments, I think they were earlier today, or maybe it was yesterday on the Pat McAfee show, which were just very non-committal and about being out there on the field. What do you think's going on with Aaron Rodgers?
Have you ever seen that scene in Mad Men where Don Draper's in the elevator and this younger kid is just like ranting at him about how he's going to be sorry and I feel bad for you and you're going to pay and blah, blah, blah. And Don Draper just turns to him and goes, I don't think about you at all. And he walks away. Like that. What does my heart tell me about Aaron Rodgers? Nothing. I don't care. Like, I have to watch my language because I'm like, I just don't care. Like, like he is just like, there was a clip that Nick Wright, I believe for ESPN, or Fox Sports or wherever he was doing something, had a great rant about just like Aaron Rodgers being the type of player who always seems to be annoyed that everyone's paying attention to him and overanalyzing what he says. And then he makes it a must-see TV event every time he's going to go tell us absolutely nothing on the Pat McAfee show. So it's like he seems to be surprised when he makes a big deal out of every, what kind of Pop-Tarts he had this morning. And then when everybody else writes about it, he's going to be like, why does everybody care what I said? Like, I don't care what he does at this point. Like he's 40 plus years old. The Jets were worse with him last year than they were the year before when he got hurt on the first play of the season. And so if that doesn't tell you listen, in his prime, I will give him all his flowers. As a quarterback, he might be the most talented thrower of a football I've ever seen with my own eyes on the football field. At his best, he was one of the best the game has ever seen. He is not that player now. And when you think about everything else that you're bringing into the team, when you make that guy the quarterback of your franchise on and off the field, the player he is now is no longer worth everything else that comes along with it. And it's no longer worth putting your franchise, you're gonna do what the Jets did the last 2 years. Ask them how that went, going and signing all of his buddies and doing everything he wanted to try to build this team. And they were god awful. They were terrible. And so, I guess that's my rant for the day is that if it honestly makes me sad just as a football fan to see a team like the Pittsburgh Steelers, such a historic franchise that has such a great history in the league, if they're genuinely waiting on this guy to decide what direction their franchise goes next, man, that might be the saddest thing a Pittsburgh Steelers fan has ever seen in their lives.
Luke, it feels like Aaron Rodgers was maybe about 20 years too early. And I think he has a mindset very similar to a lot of the college guys. This story with Nico Iamaleava, and they didn't have the right players around me. So it's not about the money. It's they wouldn't give me the right weapons. So I'm just going to up and leave and be difficult to deal with. We had a caller in the last hour ask about, what happens when this type of player that's dominating the college landscape right now, which is a very selfish, I want to get my way no matter what, starts making their way into the NFL and then starts to dominate the NFL in the sense of the number of guys who are in the league as the older team first guys start to trickle out and retire. So is there any part of you that is a little concerned for the future of the NFL as it becomes more and more me first, me first, me first?
Here's what I'll say about that. I'll say that first of all, human beings are human beings. People are people. And so while you will have certain players that will prioritize that, and are there mechanisms in the sport now that are making, those types of players able to make some of those decisions, and can that exacerbate that, to a degree? Yeah, that's true. Are there still players that are still going to be team first, that are still going to, they're all over the place still. We hear more about the one or two guys that are making a big stink because they want $4 million instead of $2.5 million, or they want a different offense or whatever, and that's fine. But the vast majority of everybody else isn't necessarily being that way. And I will lay any blame if we're gonna have a conversation about who gets the blame for whatever is wrong with college sports in particular, and whether or not that trickles down to the NFL at a later date, we'll see. But if we're going to blame anybody, we have to start with the NCAA first. We got to go to Mark Emmert first. We got to go to them first and say, you guys had decades to figure out a way to do this in an equitable way that served the sport, that served the players, and made sure that the players were able to adequately benefit from the effort and what they brought to the sport while everyone else was eating, while the TV networks were eating, while the NCAA was saying, if you had a cheeseburger with the wrong person, then now you're ineligible and can't play anymore, to propping up this amateurism for decades and decades and wielding that power. Holding on and clutching those pearls for so many years is what created this chaos that we have in the sport now. So while I'm not thrilled with what it has done to the sport, the players are still the last people I'm going to blame for these problems, because all they're trying to do is have the agency that coaches have always had at that level, that everyone else in the business has always had. And now that they have a little bit of ability to control their own destinies, now everybody wants to pitch a fit about it. That's where I have a problem.
You're the best, Luke Easterling. There's not another question I could ask you with an answer better than that. So I'm going to let you drop the mic right there. I know you have to get off the line here and jump on with another show immediately. So I appreciate your time as always. Every chance we get a chance to bring you on, it is so enlightening and so much fun. So thank you again, pal.
Anytime, Diesel. Great talking, buddy. Hope you're well.
That is Luke Easterling of Athlon Sports. Make sure you find him on Twitter. Give him a follow, because he is putting out so much content right now around the NFL draft. And of course, somebody who lives and eats in the world of college football has that knowledge that can just bring it right up to the pro level. It really is special what he's able to do. So make sure you give him a follow. When we come back, is this a major conflict of interest when a big time ESPN pundit is telling schools not to approach a certain athlete? That's next. Daily Wire's coming your way next. Yesterday, we had a Daily Wire about Drake suing Kendrick Lamar's record company over a planned and deliberate character assassination during the Super Bowl when they knew that the audience would be massive. Needless to say, like, we're not talking about Drake and Kendrick's like multi-year long back and forth beef. Like, this thing could have been ended a long time ago. But a very frivolous lawsuit being brought from Drake and his people. And it just makes me think of the sheer cavalcade, the cornucopia, if you will, of bogus lawsuits that are out there. And I just think of ways that companies would try to extract extra cash out of other companies. And it makes me think of this Nico Iamaleava story. Tennessee quarterback making $2.5 million a year. He wanted a $2 million increase. Maybe not, threatened to sit out of a college football playoff game for more money. And I wonder if Fox, the media rights holders for the Big Ten, which Nico still uncommitted, but everybody believes he's going to UCLA, and the entity in whatever form it may be of UCLA's NIL collective apparatus would potentially file suit against ESPN's Paul Feinbaum, who, is the mouth of the South, the mouth of the SEC, for going after Nico Iamaleava so hard. And I know you're saying, like, well, Diesel, that sounds stupid. Well, yeah. It does sound stupid. It would be stupid to do, but it wouldn't stop them from trying. I mean, think about it this way. Maybe their point isn't to try to extract money out of Paul and ESPN. Maybe the point is just to get him to shut up and not say what he's saying about an asset that is headed to UCLA. You'd be hard pressed to prove defamation, because the process and the proving therein is actually quite difficult. But this is what Paul Feinbaum had to say about Nico Iamaleava. He said, quote, "I would stay away from him. Buyer beware of this guy. It's not even Nico. It's the whole apparatus. Something tells me Nico personally is not in the middle of these negotiations. Team Nico is. I mean, there's a toxic feeling about this player because of the attention, because he is the one everyone is talking about. I would be very careful." This is what Paul Feinbaum had to say earlier today on ESPN. Quote, "First of all, I mean, you guys are better evaluators than I am, but he's a good quarterback. You know how elite he is? I mean, if you don't have a quarterback, he's by far a better option than some guy who can barely get the signals in from the coach on the sideline. But I don't think in the short term, and that's all we're really talking about with him, he's going to make a significant difference. He can impact a football team, but you have to decide, what is the cost? Everywhere he goes, there is going to be this halo around him that says he held out, he asked for money, he's a problem child, stay away." Nothing Paul Feinbaum said there was wrong. He didn't say anything wrong. Like, he didn't say anything that we're not saying on this station, that you, the Tolos, who are texting in on the Hub City Spartanburgers text line, 844-326-3663. Hub City still in their opening home stand as a brand new affiliate of the Texas Rangers. They have a game at 6:30. I hope you're already headed down there. If you got tickets, I hope you're already down there, because we keep hearing from a lot of Tolos who are going to these games that parking is a wee bit of an issue. So if you're going, get there soon, be patient, be prepared to walk a couple of blocks, something. But again, in this land of frivolous lawsuits, why wouldn't Fox, why wouldn't UCLA, why wouldn't the Bruin Collective, whatever they call themselves, why wouldn't they consider, just throwing a shut up lawsuit at Paul Feinbaum? I don't know. It doesn't feel outside of the realm of possibility. What do you think? Wire to wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson. I feel I wouldn't say bad. Bad's not really the right word because as you heard me say in my interview earlier with Jake Crain from Crain and Company, which I am going to replay coming up here at 6:00. If you missed it, he had a fantastic conspiracy theory towards the end of his interview. I don't know how I feel about former App State quarterback Joey Aguilar, who had 2 phenomenal seasons in Boone, came out of a junior college. Boone gave him a spot. He was lights out, unbelievable his first year, which I guess would have been his junior year. And then his senior year took a little bit of a step back, didn't perform well against the best competition in the conference. Enters the transfer portal, heads to UCLA, where from what I'm seeing in all the conversation about Nico heading to UCLA, people are saying, well, Joey Aguilar is a better quarterback. Joey Aguilar has a chance to beat him. They're not going to play Joey Aguilar over Nico Iamaleava, the guy that's costing them whatever it's going to cost them, $1 million, $1.5 million. You know, it stinks for him. He went there to be the presumptive starter. He got there early. He's done everything he's supposed to do. And then bam, guy from Tennessee shows up, steals the show. Madcraft says LeBron would have bankrupted Stephen A. if this were the case. Yeah, I mean, well, the whole concept of defamation and character assassination is hard to prove, but it doesn't stop people from coming out with frivolous lawsuits. Madcraft says, when Cole sue the animal shelter for noise pollution. Oh, my God. You know, I joked with Rob Brown the other day, texting back and forth, because we are friends. I don't know if you guys know that. We are friends. I joked with Rob. I was like, isn't it funny how these narratives get started about us? These things that just like Tolo will say it on the text line. We read it because we read all the text messages, right? The whole like Rob is a bleeding heart liberal. The narrative that I hate sports. Now the narrative that Cole hates dogs, and Madcraft is doing everything he can to push that narrative. Let's go to the phone lines. Tolo, I hope you're calling in to talk about Nico Iamaleava and ESPN. Who's this and what's on your mind today?
This is Dewey. I need to talk about this Nico situation.
Okay.
What's on your mind today?
Go ahead.
Yes. I'm tired of hearing about Nico Avi Ubu. He's a petulant child. He got what he deserves. After all this, his daddy got involved, and that's good for him. Now the word is he's going to get less money than what he started out with. So that's good for him. He's 18 years old. He don't need to have $2 million anyways.
God, first of all, Dewey, I'm not sure how old you are. I can't tell if you're 40 or if you're 14, but could you imagine what it would be like if you had $1 million at 18 years old?
I have no idea. I'm 85 years old, and I would never know that. Even I go play the lottery and I can't win $1 million. That just blows my little brain, and my brain's pretty little.
Yeah, I can't tell if you'd spend more money on bike helmets or jelly beans.
Bike helmets are pretty expensive, especially the ones with the little thing that twirls around circles.
Yeah, well, they got MIPS in them now.
That too, yes. And Cole's really, he's suspended because of his dog attitude. They demoted him to the news network.
I love dogs. I just want that to be known. I love dogs. I love my dog. I love other people's dogs. I love big dogs. I love little dogs.
Yeah, because if you don't love dogs, you become a dog hater, then you get demoted too. I don't like cats, though.
Oh, what did cats ever do to you, Dewey? Come on, did they scratch you?
Yes, and they bit me. I try to feed my wife's cat to the dog one time. That's why she divorced me.
Well, that's probably a good thing.
Many reasons.
Yeah. Okay, Dewey.
Oh, and I missed the alien segment, but the aliens, I'm an alien. And then you got Rick and Tom. You got to explain them too.
Rick and Tom are aliens too, or are they? I just figured they partied too much in the '60s.
Well, that too. I party every night, but
Thank you, Dewey.
he comes from the planet Somerville. So,
Thanks, Dewey. God, you never know where that guy's going to go. 85 years old now, but if you believe it. Mad says, open the aliens back up. It's Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson. Let's jump off to break. Look, we have talked this Nico Iamaleava story to death. We really have. But there's constant angles that are coming out about this. And, I wonder if one day Nico will wise up and will emancipate himself from his father, because his father really has screwed things up for him. If we really believe that Nico was upset that he didn't have the right kind of talent with him at Tennessee, wide receivers, offensive line, tight ends, running backs, like where do you think you're going to go that's going to improve these things? If you are a number 1, number 2 quarterback in the SEC, you may get an opportunity somewhere that has great talent around you. But where else are you going to go that's going to have better talent than an SEC team that just went to the playoff? Like, where do you think you're going to go that's going to improve your situation that much instantly? Yeah, Nico, maybe the conversation shouldn't be, is Fox or is UCLA going to sue ESPN? Maybe is Nico going to sue his father for screwing up his life so much? A lot to get to coming up next in our Daily Wires. Gio Lopez has made his decision known publicly. The NHL is crushing it in ratings and in attendance as many other sports slip. And we'll get you caught up what's going on with South Carolina, Clemson, and Coastal Carolina, who are playing today. 2 out of those 3 have already gotten started. Daily Wires coming your way next. 97.7 FM in Greenville, 97.1 FM in Spartanburg, and everywhere on the free Odyssey app. So much happening in the sports world, some of which we've had a great time talking about today on Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson, some of which we haven't even gotten the chance to approach. So we hit all of those topics and more in our daily wires. This is the buzz happening around the sports world. Jazz Chisholm, who at one time could have been a Brave, was ejected from the New York Yankees 6-3 victory over the Tampa Bay Rays on Thursday night. Then he violated a Major League Baseball social media policy when he posted in-game criticism online. He was ejected in the seventh inning by a plate umpire named John Bacon for arguing after a called third strike on a full count pitch that appeared low, which was his fifth career ejection. He took his displeasure to social media, posted about it, immediately thought, that's not a good idea. I know that's a violation of policy, took it down, but we don't know if he's going to face any further issues from the Yankees and Major League Baseball on that. It's official that former South Alabama quarterback Gio Lopez has committed to play for Bill Belichick at the University of North Carolina. He was the number 6 available transfer in ESPN spring portal rankings. He lands as an immediate front runner to claim the starting quarterback job under first-year coach Bill Belichick. Per sources, Gio Lopez will join North Carolina on a 2-year, $4 million contract with 3 seasons available after a breakout redshirt freshman season in 2024. This is why I believe that there should be buyouts for players. I don't think it's right that all of the college football, all the major schools passed on this kid, passed on him, said, no, sorry, Gio, we don't want your services. So Gio Lopez ends up at South Alabama, a program that doesn't have a tremendous amount of history of success. They just built a brand new, beautiful stadium down there like 2 years ago. Shout out to them. That place is awesome. But South Alabama identified him, coached him up, had him playing great football, and then UNC's collectives, people who don't know the guy, who didn't have any connection to him before, who didn't recruit the guy, can just come in, flash some Benjis, and take him away. I think they need to compensate him. So I've always said it needs to be a graduating system. Every year that you're in school, it starts at 25% and goes up from there. If a guy leaves as a freshman, the school that's taking the transfer has to pay 25% of the cost of attendance of being at that school, or cost of development. Let's put it that way. So if it costs $100,000 to put him through school, to feed him, to clothe him, to coach him, all the stuff he gets for being a student athlete at South Alabama, then North Carolina should have to pay $25,000 to bring that kid in. Should be the price of doing business. And maybe that happens one day if they start implementing, an employment structure. I find it fascinating that the language used about Gio Lopez was a 2-year, $4 million contract, when that contract can be nullified, can be nullified at any time Gio Lopez decides he wants to go. There's no recourse for that. The only recourse is whether or not North Carolina's collective is paying him all up front or in drips and drabs. If they're paying him in installments, he may want to stick around and get the rest of that money. So that's interesting. That's interesting. Talked about this earlier in the show. Jake Paul, who's 11-1 as a professional fighter, air quotes, professional fighter, will take the next step to becoming a world champion when he faces former WBC middleweight champion Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. with a record of 54-6-1 with 34 KOs. Think about that. Chavez has almost 3 times as many knockouts in his career than Jake Paul has fights under his belt. And here we are. Saturday, June 28th, Honda Center, Anaheim, California. Some of you are going to shell out your hard-earned money, put it down on the barrelhead, and watch this idiot fight another over-the-hill fighter so that he can say, oh, I beat this once great, now 40-year-old fighter. And he brags about beating Tyson when the whole thing was a sham. We know that it was. We know that it was a sham. Somebody's going to spend money on this. Don't be that guy. Don't be that guy. Let this production flop. Would you, please? Or they're going to be fighting at 200 pounds, and it's going to be on pay-per-view. Find it if you want. I don't care. The NHL has set another attendance record and has surpassed 23 million total fans for the very first time. Think about that. As attendance is falling in college football every single year, which I know that's comparing college to professional, football to hockey. But think about this. The NHL is crushing it in attendance right now. Crushing it. The league on Friday reported an attendance figure of 23,014,458 total tickets sold across the 1,312 game regular season. That represents 96.9 capacity across 32 teams. 97% full every night in the NHL. That is mind-boggling. That is mind-boggling. 97% full. It's one of those reasons why I keep saying Greenville, as fast as we're growing, needs to pursue an NHL franchise. If they're going to expand, we want to be on that short list. I know some of you are like, traffic, roads, blah. Think about the future. You get your traffic and your roads and you still got nothing. Now you have to start thinking about it. Or you could bring the thing in that's filling an arena to 97% capacity every single night, spending a tremendous amount of money, making a huge economic impact. Shout out to the NHL for whatever it is they're doing to get people to show up to games, because this is fantastic. It's a third straight season the NHL has broken its previous attendance record. So it's not a blip. It's not a blip. They are killing it right now. In response to Deion Sanders in Colorado retiring the jerseys of Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter at the Colorado Spring Game, Chad Brown, a Buffalo's Hall of Fame linebacker, posted on social media, quote, "If the players from the national championship team have not received such an honor, by default, this action diminishes, and for a new generation of CU fans, erases their greatness. I would never minimize the impact of number 2 or number 12. They are amazing players, but this timing is poor." Here in the state of South Carolina at number 11, Ole Miss, first pitch today at 4 o'clock. That game is underway. After 3 innings, the score is South Carolina 4, Ole Miss 1. Gamecocks are playing well. I know Tom probably doesn't have a lot of faith in South Carolina's ability to hold the lead. We'll see. We're only through 3 innings. Yesterday, number 2, Clemson beat number 17, Louisville, 7-6. 2 errors cost the Tigers 3 unearned runs in the top of the first. Jack Creighton hit his first career home run in his 100th career game, a 3-run shot to center field with 2 outs in the 7th. Jacob McGovern earned his second win of the season with a perfect 7th inning in relief. As of right now, game 2 of that Clemson-Louisville series is tied 0-0, currently sitting in the bottom of the second. Little update for you on that South Carolina Ole Miss score. And I did say that wrong. South Carolina is the home team. Apologies there. South Carolina now leads 5-1 over the 11th ranked Ole Miss Rebels. Coastal Carolina rebounded from a 5-16 loss at Wake Forest on Tuesday with an 11-1 win in Conway against Marshall on Wednesday. Game 2 for that series is set to start here in just about 7 minutes. The Hub City Spartanburgers rallied late but fell short and lost 6-5 at home to Bowling Green last night. The Burgers are now 6-5 on the season. Keith Jones cracked his first career home run as a professional, a 2-run shot to score himself and Dylan Dreiling. The Hot Rods touched up starter Paul Bonzagni pretty good, who was pulled after getting just 2 outs in the first inning. Spartanburg now leads the series against Bowling Green 2-1 with a 6:35 first pitch tonight at Fifth Third Park, with post-game fireworks to follow. Can't wait. If you Tolos are going to the game, take some photos, post some pictures on Twitter, tag us at the Fan Upstate. We'd love to see what you see out there on location. Finally, New Orleans native and influential rapper Lil Wayne has expressed hurt over not being selected to headline Super Bowl 59 in his hometown, and now says that he would never perform at the Super Bowl. Take that, Roger Goodell. You're never going to get Lil Wayne. He said instead of watching the Super Bowl, he was smoking weed and playing pool instead. That's Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson. Earlier in the show, I had a great conversation with Jake Crain from the show Crain and Company on the Daily Wire Network. If you missed it, he brings a doozy of a conspiracy theory. Why the NCAA took their hands off the wheel, and is it maybe a ploy to get football to come back to them? I'll replay that for you next. longtime guest, used to be a regular. Now he's just irregular, former college football coach. So when he speaks, you better listen or he'll have your ass running stadium stairs. The host of Crain and Company, Jake Crain on the Real Daily Wire, joins us now. How are you, buddy?
Oh, man, I'm doing great. Obviously, always fun when I can join you guys. And, you know, now that March Madness is done, I know we got some other stuff going on. We still have 900 Major League Baseball season regular season games left, but I'm ready for kickoff.
Jake, between your brother, Blaine, and your co-host, David Cohn, who's the sucker that's going to buy the Jake Paul pay-per-view against a 38-year-old Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., and why is it Blaine?
Oh, well, I think Blaine is the most likely just to hate watch it. He's been trying to fight Jake Paul for 3 years. I just look, I'm just not into, you know, boxing in itself, and I got a lot of respect for the tradition of boxing and obviously how popular it was. You know, UFC to me is so much better. But if I want to watch, you know, old people get beat up, which I don't, I just go to a nursing home and pull the fire alarm. I don't get it.
Yeah, it feels like, you know, every Jake Paul is just bum fights on pay-per-view. Jake,
it really is.
I've heard stories, even though I've never been to Scandinavian countries, that men over there are so weak and feckless that women actually have to be the romantically aggressive ones to ask men out on dates. Now, you and I are married men, so it wouldn't help us much, but I would have loved to have saved all the money that I spent on drinks and cologne and clothes to attract women. So I say all that to get into the topic of the Braves reporter who got a woman's phone number live on the air. Now, I think if he had been shot down on live television, if the blonde to his left had said, "No, thanks, I have a boyfriend," it would have made for insanely compelling TV, but it also would have had all these social justice warriors on Twitter actually applauding women's empowerment because she said no to the dirty, aggressive, mean man, right?
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, to your first point about the Scandinavian country, that there's a reason America's back-to-back World War champs. There's a reason we're the biggest superpower in the world, because at the end of the day, we're the ones that are going to go get it and go make all the plays. You know, it's laughable to me because I think if you put, you know, the biggest knock was, oh, well, if that was a female reporter asking for a guy's number, she would have gotten absolutely crucified online. You mean like you're crucifying this guy online right now? That wouldn't have happened. There would have been no guy out there that was pissed that a woman reporter asked for a dude's number. That's encouraging because, like you said, typically it goes the other way. So I thought the reaction was crazy. What I said on Crain and Company was, I wonder what they would have said if that guy was asking another guy for his number. I'm sure all those same social justice warriors would have probably applauded it and talked about how inclusive and great it was. So it's laughable at this point. If you really watch the clip, the announcers kind of egged him on to do it. So it was kind of a shtick. And you know what? I hope they get married. I hope they have 4 kids. I hope they have an incredible life, and it's a 30 for 31 day. We've just gotten so soft, and I know social media isn't real life. It's laughable at this point to me.
Yeah, I saw it as kind of like a Hallmark meet cute kind of moment. There's even a word for it, a meet cute. The guy wasn't aggressive. He wasn't sleazy.
No.
It seemed like a fun, innocent bit, and I didn't see any issue with it at all.
No, I didn't. And again, we've just gotten to a point now where everybody just wants to get offended about everything. And it's just so I think maybe we're starting to get out of it a little bit, but just the fatigue of, oh no, he's harassing her. Yeah. Watch that interaction. I don't think she was getting harassed at all. I would love if people came up to me and asked me for my number. You know, I'm married now, so I'm not worried about that. I outkick my coverage better than any special teams coach ever could. But at the end of the day, it's just, man, grow up, Peter Pan, Count Chocula. This is how it works. How do you think you got here?
Well, and we need the follow-up. We need to know if he called her or if to him it was just a bit as well, right? I mean, he just because he got the number doesn't mean he's going to call her. But if he does call her and they go on a date, we need details on this. This is a running through thread with the Atlanta Braves being as awful as they are. This might be the most compelling thing about the Braves season so far.
No, it'd be the biggest win they've had. I can promise you that. Look, at this point, it sounds like a great TLC show, or like one of those shows where it's kind of like reality TV. But no, like I said, I hope it was genuine. I hope they get married. I hope they have 19 kids, and I hope it works out great. It's just so ridiculous at this point. We got to get back to the basics, man.
It's Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson, joined right now on the phone by Jake Crain, host of Crain and Company. Make sure you look up their content and find them. They're absolutely fantastic at what they do. I saw yesterday, Jake, that you tweeted well wishes about Chad Baker-Mazara after he announced he's leaving Auburn for the transfer portal. I'm going to tell you, man, you're a bigger man than me, because I wouldn't have. I'm a petty X. I want to see all the dudes that leave my program go sit the bench and stink somewhere else. I just wonder, is fans fawning over players who are leaving their program, tweeting out the thanks for your efforts, and I'm calling you out. Is that enabling guys to say, well, the fans don't really care about me if I leave, so I could just go?
Go ahead. No, at the end of the day, I go it from a coaching perspective. Even as fans, because all these players on social media, you don't want to go after a guy on social media and team up and hate on him, because all these guys talk to each other, even if he's leaving for bad reasons, even if you don't like him, this, that, or the other. I never wanted to burn a bridge, especially in the transfer portal era, because how do you know that at the end of the day, one of his best friends isn't a guy that's going to be down to Auburn, Duke, and Illinois? How do you know if him and PJ Haggerty from Memphis are boys or not? So you can tell your friends offline, hey, don't like this guy, whatever, say what you want, it's a free country. But to me, especially as kind of brittle as people are now because of social media, including the players, I'm going to say, hey, man, it's a Fall Out Boy situation. Thanks for the memories.
Jake, let's stay right there with the transfer portal topic there for just a second. About 2 weeks ago, I don't know if you saw this video or not, Grambling State head coach Mickey Joseph proposed buyouts for players. He said, I can't stop and I don't want to stop players from bettering their situation, but he highlighted the reality that now his team is without an asset, a player that he was counting on, and that he doesn't have the resources at Grambling, the NIL collective, to just go out and buy a player to replace the one that he lost. We're already shrinking rosters. Are buyouts, in your mind, at all an effective solution? Say if South Alabama decided it cost $100,000 to house, feed, care for, and coach Gio Lopez, should North Carolina, who just signed him officially today, have to compensate South Alabama for taking their asset?
Well, I think once we have, and I tell you what, the interview we did with Jim Cavall, who is as ingrained in where NIL is and where it's going as anybody else the other day, kind of hinted at this. Once we actually have a structure and guidelines, I think there is a way to implement buyouts through legitimate contracts, right, that are performance-based and tenure-based, which we can't do right now because there's no law that allows it, because these guys aren't employees. And that's what, is going on right now in the House and in Congress and this, that, and the other. Because it's not really NIL, it's pay for play, but you do it through an NIL contract, which is really non-withstanding, and that's why these guys can move and go about. But I think one of the nice offshoots of getting structure will be able to put in an ability to, hey, if you're a player that's at South Alabama, or you're a player that's at Grambling, and you sign to play here and there's a incentive and tenure-based situation, if you decide to transfer, especially up or at a higher level or to a school with, a better situation, then there is a portion of a buyout that school has to pay for you to be able to do that. But until we're able to structure anything around NIL, none of this is going to be possible. So I think that is a secondary thing, or that will be a great symptom of a structure-based NIL situation that is true in nature.
Jake, through all of this, I wonder if the NCAA and those who are left up there, I don't even know what they do anymore, I wonder if they're quietly saying to themselves, I told you so, to all the people who wanted to pay the players. Do they feel like they held back the floodgates as long as they possibly could, and that everything bad that's happened to the sport in the last 5 or 6 years, that they just had to get out of the way of, and they were doing the right things all along?
Well, I've had this theory for a while that the NCAA wanted to let this thing get as bad as possible to force some sort of congressional action that would therefore tie college football to the NCAA, because I think that's their only hope. I think that's the only way that college football doesn't say, you know what, all right, NCAA, bye, you have no teeth anymore, this and that. If there is some sort of congressional or legislative action that ties NIL to the NCAA, it therefore ties college football to the NCAA, giving NCAA power back. Now, that is a theory of mine. I think that's the only way that they could save themselves with college football, and even moving forward at this rate, college basketball.
Yeah, I wonder how, if this proposed breakaway happens, in a couple of years that everybody thinks is inevitable, that's a whole new gigantic enforcement apparatus that the Power 5 conferences are going to have to, number one, put together. Number two, they're going to have to pay for. So that's a gigantic headache in its own right. I wonder why nobody has said, okay, NCAA, we understand you've got these pieces. You had some form of an enforcement arm, even though it wasn't effective. Why don't we keep those people in place, let them do what they do, and then reestablish some form of like power structure and teeth so they can actually enforce some things? Like, do you not see, it becoming a big old bleep show if the Power 4 conferences have to create their own structure?
Well, I think it's already a bleep show, but what I do like the thought of, and this is something else we talked with Jim Cavall about, is that if you do have a breakaway structure of the Power 4 and maybe a couple other teams, I think there's some teams in the Power 4 that shouldn't be in the Power 4. They're just locked into a conference that is one of the biggest. What I'm interested to see is if that were to happen and you were to have this Super League, does it turn into one big conference? Like, for example, do you just go to one media member and say, hey, we're packaging all of this together and have one enforcement wing, therefore it's consistent for everybody? It's not SEC and Big Ten have their own enforcement and the Big 12 have their own enforcement. That's still part of this breakaway society. But as far as a timeline goes, I don't know how you could do anything from the standpoint of all, the Power 4 teams breaking away into a Super League, going to make that media play and doing that until these current media situations that run through like 2032 are done. So if you're the NCAA, are you able to sit there and look and say, well, it seems like unless there's some sort of change that happens or contract that ends up void, we still have about 5 to 6 years to figure this out. I think it's a total bleep show because they let all of it out of the box at once with no structure. But I actually trust the Power 4 conferences coming together more than the NCAA, because I've seen the NCAA with selective enforcement. I've seen the NCAA be wildly inconsistent and hypocritical, and I've seen the NCAA try and take money out of the players' pockets since they were introduced. So I don't trust them as far as I can throw them.
Jake, who's been your most surprising transfer so far? Bringing it back local here to South Carolina, where we're in Clemson and South Carolina territory. I'm kind of scratching my head at 4-star freshman Air Noland, who left Ohio State to go to South Carolina, where he knows he's going to sit behind Lenore Sellers for at least 2 years. Some of these decisions that are being made are just head scratchers. And on top of that, when you look at the transfer portal just opening on Wednesday, even hours after this thing opened, the 3,000 some odd players who had entered the portal, over half were already committed. I look at that and say, that's tampering. That's weird. What's going on in these situations?
Yeah, well, look, the tampering thing, you're never going to stop it. Like, there's no way to stop it. People are just going to talk through third parties. So you might as well just, you're Don Quixote trying to kill windmills at this point when it comes to tampering. You just got to hope that either you're better at tampering or your program's so good the tampering is basically ineffective. The Air Noland decision, I'm 100% with you. I don't understand that one unless you were changing positions or you heard something about Lenoris that none of us know, which he isn't going anywhere. He's in a great spot. We did a big preview on them about a week and a half ago. Combs are really high on South Carolina this year. But to me, the obvious answer is it's Nico at Tennessee. I mean, bro, What are you doing? Like, it's not like you had all this leverage because you balled out so much last year. You could name your price. You were actually the weakness. Tennessee made the playoff because of their run game and defense. It wasn't the offense. Josh Heupel got Joe Milton drafted, buddy. It ain't him. It's you. And you're listening to the wrong people. And his dad seems like LeVar Ball on steroids, man. I would have to say Nico.
We've spent a lot of time over the past week breaking down this whole Nico story. And, I told you before, I'm a petty X. I would want to see him get busted all the way down to the FCS. If he wants to play, you're going down to a stadium that's got a track around it. You know what I'm saying? But I want to get your thoughts on what Urban Meyer had to say. And I'm sure you've seen this by now, his quote that was out there from On3 Sports. And I'm not gonna read the quote, but basically he was asking Tennessee fans if they would give Josh Heupel grace for standing on principle and letting Nico go if they were down in games that they probably shouldn't be down in. He mentioned Florida in that situation. And to me, that's kind of a knock on Florida by saying you're down to Tennessee at halftime.
Yeah, look, I mean, Urban Meyer talking about team culture, I don't think is, the best spokesman for it. But I think he's got a great point. Like, how long is that leash? Like, Josh Heupel, again, at the end of the day, I think he made the right move. But I think most Tennessee fans, including the one that got kidnapped by a South African gang and then released, and the first thing he wanted to know is what happened to Nico. I don't think the fan base is going to just be, standing on business with Josh Heupel if all of a sudden you look up and you're 4-6. Because I know how fans are. There'll be some, but there are a lot more. Fan is short for fanatical. So there's a reason it's fanatical. And it's easy to say right now when we're sitting here in April, when there's no games being played or bullets flying, nobody's making fun of you at work. Nobody's talking about this disastrous Tennessee season. I don't think that leash is very long. I think Urban Meyer is right. But I also think Josh Heupel made the right decision, which shows you the terrible situation that Nico put Tennessee in.
Jake, tell me about this video tricking tourists into thinking that David Cohn is Elon Musk's cousin. How did this come about? I mean, were you guys just making the road trip and said, hey, this is an idea, we could have some fun with this? And do you feel ashamed of yourself for tricking those poor Asian tourists?
No, we just out-Chinese the Chinese. They've been tricking us for 35 years. No, so we got invited to the White House for the Ohio State national championship celebration and got to meet Donald Trump, which was awesome, and talk to J.D. Vance and those guys. And so the plan was to just go to D.C. and use it as like a networking thing, but we were like, hey, we might as well shoot some content while we're outside. We had no plan. There was no like, hey, we're going to go try and trick people to think this is Elon Musk's cousin. Just my brother being the Joaquin Phoenix Joker-minded individual that he was, we had some Chinese people come up to us and ask for reporters, and Blaine told them we're here showing around, because Cohn looks a little bit like everybody on the planet, including Elon Musk. And Blaine, my brother, told the Chinese tourists that this was Elon Musk's cousin, Delon Musk, and they 100% believed it, hook, line, and sinker. And so now we really think if we want to see how many people, if we were to go to China, which may not be the best time right now, we could convince that David Cohn is actually really Elon Musk's cousin, Delon Musk.
Jake, I was there was nothing but a wall separating me and then candidate Trump way back in was it 2014, I think. He came by our radio station to do a live interview in the studio next door to ours. Everybody got to go meet the guy, not us. We were live on the air. We didn't get a chance to walk around and shake hands and say hello. I just wonder, as fanatical as football fans are, do you think J.D. Vance knocked himself out of the next presidential election by fumbling the trophy? Because, my God, that was bad.
No, I think he actually won Michigan because of it. He's gonna win. He's gonna win Ohio anyway, just because regardless. At the end of the day, he is an Ohio State alum, and he does really well in that state. But Look, I thought he kind of saved it about as good as he could. He said, after Ohio State won, he never wanted anybody to hold the trophy again. But to me, it's part of a bigger conversation. The trophy is terrible. Yeah. It is the worst trophy in sports. Like, we got to get a better. Like, the crystal ball was so awesome. Like, I thought that was like the best it could be with the BCS. This trophy just looks funny. The base isn't screwed on right. We got to fix that. The sport's too great to have a sucky trophy.
At the very least, lock this thing in, like lock the top into the base so that it's not two pieces just fly in every direction.
Well, I do think he missed a golden opportunity to say, and this is why we need to bring manufacturing back to America.
And Jake Crain, host of Crain and Company. Look up his work. He's absolutely fantastic. At Jake Crain _ on Twitter. Appreciate your time as always, buddy. Good to talk to you.
Hey, same here, brother. Appreciate you guys having me, and hope everybody has a great Easter weekend.
That was Jake Crain from the Daily Wire. Jake Crain _ is where you can find him on social media. We started the show with it. Let's boomerang it, bring it back. Deion Sanders firing back at all the people calling the retirement of his son's jersey nepotism. That's next on the Fan Upstate. Spent some time early in the show at 5 o'clock talking to Luke Easterling of Athlon about the NFL draft. Didn't really even have time to get into the entire Shedeur Sanders conversation, though. For those of you interested in what Luke has to say about Shedeur, he calls him a high-floor, pro-ready passer who can handle the pressure that comes with leading a storied franchise. He has Shedeur Sanders going number 10 to the Pittsburgh Steelers. That's a trade from the Chicago Bears. Really interesting what's going on with Shedeur Sanders right now and his father, Deion, and this whole retiring of the jerseys, the number 2 and the number 12 worn by Shedeur and Travis Hunter at Colorado. We haven't spent a lot of time talking about it this week. But now Deion Sanders is firing back at the pundits who have had something to say about Shedeur Sanders having his jersey retired. And here was the quote. "We're talking about Shedeur. We ain't talking about nobody else. If his last name wasn't Sanders, we wouldn't have this discussion." And Deion's 100% right. If we were talking about anybody but Shedeur Sanders, they wouldn't be having their jersey retired alongside Travis Hunter. Now, you can make a case that Travis Hunter had a special enough season that he should have his jersey retired eventually, like decades from now, 20 years from now. But Shedeur is just he was good. He was good at Colorado. Is he anywhere near elite? No, not even close. Nowhere near elite. Not to the point that he should get his jersey retired. I mean, come on. Cordell Stewart doesn't have his jersey retired at Colorado. If you want to place Shedeur Sanders in some sort of special ring of honor, even that feels like it's going a little too far. If you want to commemorate him and Travis and, a couple of other guys on like a freestanding monument at Folsom Field, fine. That's cool. I got no problems with that. But don't retire the jersey. It's too early for that. And a lot of Colorado players who are legends at that school, who won national championships at that school, have a problem with this. This comes from Tyler Columbus, who was a standout offensive lineman for the Buffaloes. "The vitriol from former players regarding CU retiring number 2 is loud. I think most, including myself, believe he deserves the honor. Eventually, bypassing the line, bypassing number 2 Deion figures doesn't make sense. So many all-time greats that deserve the honor have waited their turn. Why so fast? Zero waiting period. Feels like the first blunder of the Coach Prime era that has upset the alumni." Makes you wonder just how important are these alumni to the university? Are they donating money to the university? And again, I'm not saying that should change what kind of an opinion they're allowed to have. I'm just saying it may change whether or not Deion Sanders cares about what they have to say. He may say, well, hey, you won a title here. You were great here a couple of decades ago. But I don't see you coming around. I don't see you donating money. I don't see you out there stumping for this Colorado Buffalo program. I don't see any of that stuff. So why would I care what you think? It's a possibility. It's a possibility. Here's what Chad Brown, a Buffalo's Hall of Fame linebacker, posted on social media. Quote, "If the players from the national championship team have not received such an honor, by default, this action dismisses, diminishes, and for a new generation of CU fans, erases their greatness." Wow, erases their greatness. "I would never minimize the impact of number 2 or number 12. They are amazing players, but this timing is poor. They've only been away from the program for a couple of months. They haven't even been drafted yet. Pro day, or not pro day, at spring game. Why? I mean, does Deion Sanders not see? He's a smart guy. He's a smart guy. Does he not see how much this looks like nepotism? Does he not see why everyone would think what they think, say what they say, feel how they feel? I mean, this just feels like a way of getting some cheap headlines, right? It feels cheap. Travis Hunter one day, yes. Shedeur Sanders one day, maybe. I mean, you could make a case for it. I'm not saying that you can't. But Cordell Stewart deserves to have his number retired. Not Shedeur Sanders, not yet. Not Travis Hunter, not yet. Deion said that he has been part of several jersey retirement ceremonies, and it's never been a sore subject before. Quote, "This is the first time I've ever seen it sore. I don't know if you know it, but I think every jersey I darn near played in is retired. So I'm pretty familiar with this. It's never been sore." Well, Deion, how many of your ceremonies took place just months after you left a team or a program? It's early. Whether or not it's warranted is debatable. I think Travis Hunter was truly special and would have been enshrined eventually. Travis Hunter holds the single-season record for receiving touchdowns at 14 and is among the leaders in receptions and receiving yards in school history. He also holds records for total snaps played in a season. He won the Heisman. When you ask people about Shedeur and whether or not he deserves it, they say, well, he broke a ton of records at Colorado. Well, it's not that hard. Colorado hasn't been that good. And back in the day, Cordell Stewart was playing in basically an option offense where you're not going to build up a ton of quarterback stats. So, like, tout the accomplishments if you want to. But like getting all of them in a short period of time tells me that's really not that special, right? Like he didn't have to work for it. It didn't take him, 2 seasons, 3 seasons of trying. Just tells me the bar was set pretty low at Colorado, even with the national championship winning teams. What do you think, Tolos? 844-326-3663, 844-FAN phone. Want you to be a part of the show in the last 25 minutes or so. Text into the Hub City Spartan Burgers text line. Message in on the stream. Dan B is doing that on the stream right now. He says, gonna laugh when Shedeur doesn't amount to anything and doesn't get that second contract. Woo. Won't get the second contract. I think the name by itself will keep him relevant in the NFL through the second contract. But I don't know. You go back to that Tom Brady quote where he said these guys aren't ready. They're coming in and they're having to dumb down offenses for them. Maybe the NFL, and this wouldn't be a concerted effort because that implies conspiracy, but like maybe the NFL starts flushing out young quarterbacks who don't work out in their first contract much quicker. I mean, you look at all the quarterbacks who were great coming out of college who didn't amount to a ton. Some of them, you can look at situation. Trevor Lawrence is a good example of that. But maybe the NFL looks at that and teams look at that. GMs look at that. And they say, you know what? I'd rather have an entrenched veteran. At least then I know what I'm getting, right? I mean, Sam Darnold stunk with New York, stunk with Carolina, went off to Minnesota, and he played pretty good. Pretty good. NFL teams may say, you know what? I'd rather have that than an unproven rookie. Dan B says, Tim Tebow's name didn't mean anything. You have to actually be good at quarterback. Good point. Good point. I mean, I can't argue with that. A lot of people, granted, I'm not an historian on Tim Tebow and how he played with the Broncos. There's a lot of people who believe that Tim Tebow played better than he's given credit for. Was he great in the NFL? No, he was otherworldly in college. Otherworldly in college. Gets off to the NFL. That style of play just doesn't translate. But there are people who believe that he was a little bit better. I mean, nobody's gonna design an offense in the NFL to look like what he was running at Florida. They're not gonna do that. Dewey on the text line at 844-326-3663 says Deion is a clown who doesn't care what people think. It kind of goes back to what we were saying yesterday in the Tolo Takeover. When I said people can't admit when they're wrong. People will twist, contort, misdirect, turn it around, instead of internalizing, hey, maybe they got a point. Maybe my son was pretty good here. And we can't take that away from him. He was good here. But maybe it's early. I mean, I guess now they're like, well, we're down this road, right? We've already announced that we're going to do this. We put it out there. We've framed up the jersey already at this point. We can't go back now. We'd look stupid. I think it's more of digging your heels in mentally, saying, well, screw you. I don't have to listen to what you say. Again, I wouldn't expect it to change the situation. Maybe change the way he thinks going forward. I don't know. But Deion Sanders firing back at a lot of the people who have a problem with this, saying if his last name wasn't Sanders, we wouldn't have this discussion. Well, you're right about that, Deion. If Shedeur's last name was Smith, Shedeur Smith, he would ride off into the sunset from Colorado, maybe go be a first-round draft pick, but his name wouldn't be enshrined and his jersey number wouldn't be retired forever, meaning nobody can ever wear that jersey again. Nobody can ever wear that number again. You know, I was listening to Jake Crain's show the other day. You heard the conversation in the last segment. They were talking about this, and they were asking, well, what if somebody comes to Colorado and says, yeah, but coach, I want to be number 2. Will they unretire it for him? Yeah, coach, USC is offering me the money that I want and the number that I want. Because these kids care about that. They genuinely do. I wonder about these storied programs that retire so many jersey numbers. Quarterbacks don't want to be number 82. They want to be number 2 or number 8 or number 12. They don't want to be a random, high lineman number. They care about that. They do. Wire to wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson. It's been a blast hanging out with you guys today. Solo, rocking it solo as Cole is across the way, helping train up some young producers over on the Fan Upstate or on the on 98.9 WORD. Dan B says Tim was okay at Denver. He did win a playoff game and all, but he isn't on the level of Peyton, Tom, Patrick, Josh, etc. Johnny Manziel was an alien in college and a dud come draft time and beyond. Well, you were setting that bar awfully high, Dan. He wasn't Tom. He wasn't Peyton. He wasn't Patrick. What do they have? Like 50 Super Bowls combined among them? Woo, putting him in high company. You don't have to count Josh Allen's Super Bowls. He didn't have any. Can't add anything to that list. Look, could Tim Tebow have been a serviceable quarterback? I don't know. I feel like a guy like that, you draft him to Jacksonville. You draft him to Miami. You draft him to Tampa Bay. And fans love him, and fans come out, and fans buy jerseys, et cetera, et cetera. But we'll see. We'll also see where Shedeur goes in the NFL draft next Thursday. Cole and I are going to be live at Fifth Third Park, the home of the Hub City Spartanburgers, who just got underway about 10 minutes ago. Game 4 in their series against Bowling Green. We're going to be there on Thursday, leading you up to first pitch of that game. And, of course, leading you up to NFL draft coverage as that is set to start immediately after we get off the air. So Thursday will be our last day of speculation. We may get a little information early on about trades happening for later on in the evening. But, a lot of speculation leads up. And look, I like the NFL draft. I like the first round. I like the second round. After that, it's a bunch of dudes who are probably not going to be impact players for a while. but I don't love NFL draft coverage because it's just a lot of speculation, especially until you get a couple hours ahead of the draft. That's when things start moving and shaking. Outside of that, it's just a whole lot of, well, I think they're going to do this. I think they should do that. How many different ways can you parse that out before you start making stuff up and you start, BSing to find new ways to bring up that conversation again and again and again. When we come back, Aaron Rodgers is, just being Aaron Rodgers. He's being a doofus. He's being a jerk. What did Aaron Rodgers have to say about his exit from the New York Jets and about whether or not he still wants to play? We'll close the show with that next on the Fan Up Statement. 3 runs in the home half of the first might be all it takes for the South Carolina Gamecocks to take the series against the number 11 Ole Miss Rebels. South Carolina put up 3 in the bottom half of the first, and the score right now, bottom of the 8th, South Carolina 5, Ole Miss 2. Both teams hit the ball well. I mean, South Carolina has 6 hits. Ole Miss has 4. South Carolina's got a couple of home runs. Ole Miss has 1. South Carolina leaving a lot of runners on base, too. They could be up big. They've left 7 on the bases. Clemson leading 1-0 over Louisville, bottom of the 5th in that game. Clemson has tallied 3 hits. Louisville has tallied 2. A little bit of a pitcher's duel happening right now down in Pickens County. But I told you about this as we were going off to break. Aaron Rodgers, what is he worth to an NFL team anymore? Like truthfully, what are you getting out of Aaron Rodgers if you were to sign him? And he says, it's not about the money. I'll play for $10 million. Really, Aaron? If it's not about the money, you'd pay for $10. Just out of curiosity, what is Aaron Rodgers worth? Aaron Rodgers has a net worth of $200 million. He could play for free. It's not about the money. It's about the principle. I didn't like what they did to me. So what do you get when you sign Aaron Rodgers? You get headaches. You get a media firestorm. You get mediocre play. You get a guy that acts like he doesn't want to be there, but then gets mad at you when you say he acts like he doesn't want to be there. You sell some jerseys, you sell some tickets, you sell some food, you sell some beverage. That's what you get with Aaron Rodgers. You're not getting a quality quarterback, not anymore. He was great once. He's not anymore. Here's what Aaron Rodgers had to say on the Pat McAfee show. Quote, I wasn't stringing anyone along. I wasn't holding anyone hostage. I was honest from the jump about where I was at mentally and some of the constraints I have in my life right now that warrant my attention. I'm open to anything and attached to nothing. Retirement could still be a possibility, but right now my focus has been and will continue to be on my personal life. And that's what I've told the coaches. There's still conversations that are being had. It's all been very honest lines of communication. Just shut the hell up, Aaron. Would you tell us what's happening? What's happening? Like, what do you want? It's like that scene from The Notebook. What do you want? It's not that simple. It is that simple. Tell me what you want. Do you want to play, or do you want to go home and start a taco stand? Like, what do you want? Like, Aaron's waiting for somebody to come begging. Aaron's waiting for somebody to, please, Aaron, would you come and save our franchise? Please, would you come and spout your flat earth BS to our local media? Newsflash, Aaron, nobody's calling for that. Nobody wants that. Nobody's trying to hear that. Nobody's trying to bring that into their locker room. Nobody's trying to have you demand that your buddies from teams that you used to be on get traded for, ruining any other plans they may have been getting started. Nobody wants that, Aaron. My God, this guy's been a jerk ever since he left Cal. He's been a jerk when he came to the BMW Charity Pro-Am. Went to a busy bar on a Saturday night and said, bar, you got to leave 2 seats on either side of me so that nobody can come and talk to me. Like, that sounds like he's expecting his long-lost estranged dad to walk into the bar. Like he's waiting for somebody special that's never going to show up. I don't know if he's estranged from his father. I've understood and I heard that the relationship with his family is great. I don't know what it's like with his dad, but as I'm just making up a scenario, I'm just cracking a joke at Aaron Rodgers' expense. But what do you think Aaron Rodgers is going to do after he retires? My bet is either on a taco truck in Venice Beach, which he's going to close down after about 2 weeks after his next girlfriend, named by a color, decides to be vegan or whatever. Or he's going to open up like a weed and vape shop in Asheville. I can see that. Couldn't you see Aaron Rodgers hanging out over there near the Vance Monument? come over here and take a little poke. Maybe get you high, maybe it doesn't. I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see. Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson. Without Cole Bryson today, but Cole and I will be back to full strength on Monday. Next week, it's going to be a busy week for us. We're going to be on location at Ingalls and Powdersville on Wednesday, out at the Hub City Spartan Burgers on Thursday for the NFL Draft.